Good evening and welcome to the Town of Corte Madera Planning Commission for Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bandel.
Here.
Commissioner Beshoyer.
Here.
Vice Chair Rizzo.
Here.
And Chair Chase.
Here.
And then Commissioner Kenny is going to be remote tonight due to an illness. So I just want to make sure he's able to turn on his camera. We just started the Zoom. We're going to promote him real quick.
All right. Well, please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Individual, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight at every meeting, as in every meeting, we open up the meeting to public comment for that which is not on tonight's agenda. So if you're in the room or online and you're not going to speak about things we're going to talk about later, you may step up to the microphone or raise your hand online and you have 3 minutes to make a comment. Seeing no hands in the room go up, do we have anyone online?
No hands raised online, and looks like I do have a hand. Darlene, I'm gonna allow you to unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes.
There you go.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Please go. Yes,
Should I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, this is with regards to the proposal for a new driveway at 800 Corte Madera Avenue.
I'm going to interrupt you right there because this open comment session is for things that are not on tonight's agenda, and that is on tonight's agenda.
I am so sorry.
Could you raise your hand when we get to that topic, please?
Sure.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else?
Nope, no other hands raised.
Okay. Well, then, in short order, we will close public comment for these things that are not on the agenda. Tonight, we have 2 hearings to review. One is for 515 Oakdale Avenue. That's the first agenda item. And the second is for 800 Corte Madera Avenue. Those are our 2 items tonight. So we'll start in with 515 Oakdale Avenue. This is a major design review for a 589 square foot addition to the lower story and a 259 square foot addition to the upper story of an existing single family residence. As I said, on Oakdale. So it has Claire Smith's name on this. So I guess you're going to start this out.
Great. Good evening, Chair Chase and members of the commission. Tonight, I'll be presenting a design review application for a 589 square foot addition to the first floor and 259 square foot addition to the second floor of the existing 2-story home at 515 Oakdale Avenue. The project site is located within the Chapman Park neighborhood and is surrounded by single-family residences similar to the one at 515 Oakdale. The neighborhood is comprised of both single-story and multi-story homes. The parcel is 4,800 square feet in area, which is 2,700 square feet smaller than the standard lot size in the R1 zoning district. It is currently developed with a 1,681 square foot residence and attached garage. The residence has multiple second-story decks and a flat roof with a maximum height of 19 feet and 10 inches. The parcel is zoned R1 medium density residential. This slide shows required development standards in the R1 district, existing conditions, and proposed conditions. The existing residence is consistent with all R1 zoning district development standards, except for an existing non-conforming second-story deck that encroaches into the west side setback. The proposed project will maintain this non-conforming portion of the deck. All new decks and areas of addition will conform with the required setbacks. The project will maintain the height of the existing residence, which is 19 feet 10 inches and is well below the 30-foot maximum height limit. The existing single-car covered parking space will be maintained on site. Recent state law prohibits the town from requiring additional on-site parking. The proposed additions are mostly located at the rear of the property. On the west side of the property, there's a small addition to create enclosed entry stairway. The stairway addition will maintain the required 5-foot side yard setback on that side. At the rear of the property, the project will maintain a 51-foot and 8-inch setback where 25 feet is required. On the east side of the property, the project will maintain the existing 5-foot 6-inch setback. %70 of the floor area being added with the proposed project is at the lower floor. A portion of the lower floor is filling in an area under the existing cantilevered upper floor at the rear of the residence. The project proposes to convert 173 square feet of the existing garage and workshop area to living space and add an additional 598 square feet. The converted space will accommodate an entry hall and laundry room. The new floor area will create new bedrooms and a bathroom. The garage will continue to provide one compliant parking space. The project proposes 259 square feet of new floor area at the existing second story of the home. These additions include 86 square feet for the new enclosed entry stairwell and 103 square feet to create a larger primary bedroom. An approximately 180 square foot second story deck will be constructed along the 5-foot side yard setback. The proposed additions are located at the rear of the home and will have minimal impact to the north front elevation of the residence. On this elevation, the single car garage entry will be maintained. The existing second floor deck will be improved with new railings. And the addition of the proposed entry stairwell on the west side of the residence is visible on the right side of this elevation, as well as a deck leading from inside the home onto the deck. A door, sorry. At the south rear elevation, there will be a new window and a door, as well as a new window in the existing bay window area. The windows will look out into the rear yard and are set back over 50 feet from the rear property line. The west elevation faces the direct neighbor at 513 Oakdale Avenue. On the west elevation, the existing second story deck will be enlarged and extended closer to the side property line to align with the required 5-foot west side yard setback. Along this elevation, the lower story includes 3 new windows and the upper floor will include 1 new window. Many of the existing windows will be reconfigured and the existing sliding door will be placed by a glass swing door. The east elevation faces the direct neighbor at 525 Oakdale Avenue. On the east elevation, the upper floor will be extended to the rear by an additional 8 feet, and the lower floor will be enlarged to fill in under the existing cantilevered second floor and extend to be in alignment with the upper floor. There are 3 new windows on the elevation. 2 are at the lower story addition. At the upper floor, 1 new window will be added for the primary bedroom. Then the existing clerestory window will be shifted towards the rear of the property. The The proposed project materials include new gray roofing, white trim windows, new siding, and new hardscape. The applicant is proposing to replace the existing siding with a hardy plank siding in the color Arctic white. The white siding will be accented with Southern Belle colored deck railings and soffits. The project includes a concrete patio at the rear of the home, bordered by a retaining wall. There is a physical materials board available at the dais right there. In February of 2025, the applicant attempted to contact many neighbors in the immediate vicinity. This included 48 properties on Sausalito Street, Oakdale Avenue, Buena Vista Avenue, and Manzanita Avenue. In their communications, they invited neighbors to attend an informal gathering at the property to learn about the project. The gathering was hosted at the project site, and neighbors from 513, 525, 520, and 524 Oakdale Avenue were in attendance. The map on the screen shows neighbors who were contacted by the applicant, the neighbors who provided letters of support, and a neighbor who shared concerns. Letters of support were received from the neighbors at 5 Buena Vista Avenue, 12 Buena Vista Avenue, 502 Oakdale Avenue, and 524 Oakdale Avenue. One of the neighbors at 525 Oakdale Avenue voiced concerns related to shading and views. Staff met with the neighbor at 525 Oakdale to view the story poles from their property and share with them the shadow study analysis prepared by the applicant team. No written comment has been received from this neighbor or any neighbor since the site visit. On screen are some photos from the property. Staff prepared a full analysis of impacts to views, sunlight, and privacy in the attached resolution, and feels overall that we can make the required finding number 3. Staff is recommending approval of this application. Analysis of all design review findings can be found in the draft resolution. I'm available for questions as well as the applicant team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Claire. So now the commissioners can ask you some questions. I'm going to start with you, Valerie. See if you have any questions for Claire.
Just one small question. Do you guys have any on-site parking requirements for construction debris management whenever the construction starts? 'Cause since that street is very busy and doesn't have much parking on the sides.
It's not something that our zoning code regulates. During the building permit process, applicants will prepare a construction parking plan. And I think Public Works plays a big part in reviewing those and determining if they'll need an encroachment permit to park vehicles or store any equipment in the public right of way. But yeah, nothing's been submitted at this time. It's more so during that during that other process.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rizzo.
Not gonna believe this, but I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I'm sad. Margaret, do you have any questions for staff?
Valerie asked the question that I was most concerned about.
Okay, yeah, we don't have that. Daniel, do you have any questions for staff?
Yeah, just confirming that there's no non-conforming conditions. And if there are, I assume that they would remain.
Yeah, so there is a non-conforming condition at one of the second-story decks, and this, as far as our records show, we see the building permits for the construction of the house, and it's so old that there aren't even really plans with it in our files. And then, so it's our understanding that this was, part of the property historically and is going to be maintained as part of this project, but not intensified in any way.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Chairman.
Thank you. All right. So is anyone going to make a presentation about this project to the commission? Sir, please step forth. Yes.
Not really a presentation. I just wanted to say a few words. I just want to say my name is Tyler Shelton. I'm the project architect here. And I want to thank you for your efforts in reviewing and considering this project. Claire's done such a good job presenting everything. I feel like I have very little more to add. She's definitely better at this than I am. So I'll keep this mercifully short. I only want to point out a few aspects of what we're proposing here. And of course, answer any questions that you might have. The program for this project from the very beginning has been to just make improvements to the existing structure, keep the existing height, mass, and bulk, and just improve upon it and expand upon it slightly. This building is a typical example, or it's a typical example of a simple mid-century structure. There's lots of those around, and I think that the whole idea from the beginning is just to preserve that look, to preserve that aesthetic, and make some modest additions at the back and at the side in order to serve the client's needs. But also, we sort of made a somewhat deliberate effort not to push the boundaries in terms of development standards. We're well below coverage and floor area and height and setbacks, and we're not asking for any variances. The maximum building height is unchanged, but I did allow for a little extra height in the middle of the existing roof because from harsh experience, I know that some of these old buildings, the roof is completely flat and, puddles form. And so I think we might have to add just a little in the very middle to allow for some proper drainage to the perimeter fascias. And those perimeter fascias are unchanged and the only part of the roof that's visible from ground level. We're basically we're expanding by 8 feet in the rear. Most of the addition is at the rear. So 8 feet more. It's still leaving almost 52 feet of rear yard setback. And the only purpose of the side yard addition was to replace that existing stairway, that existing wooden stairway, with an enclosed stairway. Now you have to go up this outside stairway in order to ring the doorbell. So we wanted to put a new stairway there that's enclosed, and then have the front door, the entrance at ground level. And so that was a big part of the program. But beyond that, I just want to summarize by saying that I don't think that this is going to be very impactful. We always thought that it wouldn't be very impactful for the neighborhood. The north elevation, which is the street elevation, is largely unchanged, although you will see some mass on the west side. But I think, what effect is this going to have for the community? And I think it's going to have a good effect. I think that the average passerby is going to see very little change, but I think the change that he would see is improved front building, a nicer railing, a nicer fascia on the roof, new paint, of course, and other things. So I think the net effect is going to be that the building is going to have a new bearing of quality and solidity that it doesn't have now. And so I think this change will be subtle, but I think it's a change for the better. And I hope that everyone agrees. And I think it's a good thing for Oakdale Avenue and that block and that neighborhood, and I think this town as well. And so I hope you see fit to approve our proposal. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I presume you're the only presenter of the project tonight?
We have the owners here who would
Ah.
like to say a few words as well.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's have them come up and say what they want to, and then we'll ask questions of you, both parties after that.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
my name's Chris Sanders, one of the applicants. My wife Joanne and I have lived at 515 Oakdale for 22 years, and we love that neighborhood. If you've seen the other houses on our block, I think you'd agree that ours is the most tired and in need of improvement. We're excited about the opportunity to bring it up to the level of the neighborhood and up to modern building standards. My wife has a bit to say about that.
Good evening. I'm Joanne Sanders, and I just wanted to add that during the first 20 years we lived at 515, we rented from my mother, which was great, except that she refused to make any improvements. And we've since inherited the house and are excited to make our 1952 home more livable and energy efficient. This addition will serve our needs for the next 20 years. We plan, and we see this as an investment in our community, and we hope you agree. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I will check in with the commissioners here and see which party needs to respond to any questions. Valerie, do you have any questions for these folks?
I do, just very few. I would like to compliment the applicant and the architect for a very nicely put organization and application. It's extremely clear to read and very nice. So all of it makes complete sense. Just a couple of the questions on the dispute with the 525 Oakdale neighbor. Have you met with the neighbor after the poles have been installed?
Okay. Somebody will step up. There you go.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yes, we have met with that neighbor and to discuss her concerns of a particular palm tree and the distance that she would lose the view to. We also had a shadow study done by our architect. The shadows don't seem to be her main concern, though. It's mostly the view of the palm tree.
And was after these story poles were installed, were there additional concerns, or was it somehow resolved, or are you guys willing to resolve it by, making modifications to the design of the building?
I don't think any modification to the rear of the house would be acceptable to the neighbor because it would infringe on her view of the palm tree. But other than that particular element, she had no substantive complaints.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, any questions for these folks?
So it looks like we're only adding 8 feet to the back here.
Yeah.
A little.
I don't really have any questions. Thank you.
All right. Margaret.
One question that I had is there going to be any change when you first approach the property? There are a few steps up to the level of where the entrance level would be. They're little cement steps. Are those going to change at all?
At this time, we don't have any plans to change that entrance, no.
Excuse me?
No, we don't have any plans to change that entrance at this time.
Okay. And then had you, have you considered the parking issues that go on that street? I noticed your car was parked in the driveway. Do you normally park it in the driveway?
Okay. Could you step up to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Yes, we do usually park it in the driveway.
Okay.
That's where we can plug it in.
That's all.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Kenny,
Yeah, this may be a question for the architect, but can you explain any changes to the mechanical system, hot water, HVAC, and any whether you're going carbon neutral on those facilities?
I think we will be upgrading the systems that are there now. I think that it's warranted given what's there now, and of course we have to abide by the new strict standards of Cal Green and the new energy code. So yeah, we will do all we can to bring the building up to a high level of efficiency.
I'm going to ask Amy, that'll be included in the building permit application, will it not yet?
It'll be part of the building permit review and any triggering of the reach codes that are in place currently, but also depends on when the building permit application is submitted. We are in a year of a code cycle, so January 1st, 2026, we'll have a new code. So those requirements may change and become more strict at that point.
Okay, thank you.
I guess, Peter, if they're going to go to a heat pump system for heating and hot water and AC, if they're adding AC, where the unit compression unit would be located, given that they can be very noisy and affect neighbors.
Are you going to add an AC unit to the house, and where will that be located if you do?
I think on the plan, on the new proposed floor plan, we're showing a AC compressor unit underneath the existing front deck. And you'll pass this as you approach the front door. And so I think it will have to have some kind of screening, and but it is not in the setback, and that's always been a challenge for me in the past. So it's not in the setback, and it's close to where the mechanical equipment will likely be in the interior. We're hoping that the mechanical equipment is likely going to be just inside the garage where it is now.
Okay, got it. Does that answer your question, Mr. Kenny?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to ask?
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to public comment unless we have anything else on the dais that needs to be asked. So we're going to open it up. So if there's anyone here to make a comment on this item, you can stand up and have 3 minutes to say so. Otherwise, I'll turn to Claire and see if she's got anybody online that would like to raise a hand.
No hands online.
Okay. All right. So seeing no public comment on this item, we're going to close that and turn it back to the commissioners here to start their feedback and discussion on this item. Anybody want to start with this? Daniel?
Sure. Well, I agree with the conclusions in the staff report. I think that the impacts to neighbors are very minimal. I think they've done a good job of responding. I think it certainly goes along with the general plan in terms of investing in property in the town. And I think it's going to be a real improvement for this property. And I don't really have any other comments.
Okay, thank you. Valerie?
I agree with Commissioner Kenny. I think it's very well put together, very much needed improvement to the existing structure. So I think it goes along way with the everything that is happening in the neighborhood. So I think all of the improvements are warranted. My only comment, and I apologize for subjectiveness of it, just on the material palette. I've noticed that you guys are proposing to do a more of a moss green pavement with that more of a almost like a navy blue canopy color there. And personally, just it's not to me a great match just because it's a little bit of a cotton candy look there. So perhaps tweaking maybe like blue goes darker or more neutral because that green pavement actually very beautiful, or vice versa, going a little bit more gray. I don't know. It's up to you, but this is just my subjective opinion on the material palette. I feel like it's a little bit too much, but obviously that's up to you guys.
We'll ask the other commissioners if they have comment on that. Margaret, you're holding the board in front of you. Do you have any other comments and anything related to the materials board?
So I'm not really clear where that blue is going to be used.
Metal rails.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not an extensive,
Yeah, I don't really, I think that's personal taste and it's not my issue. I did have, being on the older side of middle age, I think that, and this is just personal too, you're not going to change it, but getting up those front cement stairs, they're narrow and there's not a really good handrail there. And I think that you might have some kind of problems in the future with people just getting up to the front area. And I see that you're doing some cement work. And so perhaps you might consider rebuilding those stairs just from a safety point of view. The real issue, I think, in that street is parking. And when I was there, the owners had mentioned it was going to take 7 months to a year's time with construction going on. When I was there, there was a roofing truck next door, and then directly across the street, a car was parked half on the sidewalk, as was another car parked entirely on the sidewalk, and I could actually not barely get my car down there. And I think that might be a real issue for 7 months to a year for people on that street. And also the location of a debris box. I don't know what that plan is. I imagine it's part of the construction plan. Is that right? Otherwise, I really appreciate the fact that the building isn't going to be a very high building. It's maintaining the level, the height that's there. I think that that really is a plus. And hats off to the architect for that, because that's great. I think that the improvements will be terrific. I think that it still fits in with the neighborhood, but it'll be a huge improvement. I don't find that the view of the palm trees is a significant hindrance to going along with the project, and I could make all the findings.
great. Thank you, Margaret. Jim?
Well, I don't have any comments on the architectural style. It seems like it didn't change that much. Placement of the addition, I don't think it could be in a better place as far as being the least impactful it can be to the majority of the community. And having in the backyard, where else can you put it on a 4,000 square foot lot? And it was tucked underneath. So I think it's a really good placement. I appreciate that the proposal meets all the development standards and is actually underneath some, significantly below of some of them. And the new siding And the roofing materials are more resilient to fires, as well as the investment into an existing house. I think it meets all of our general plan guidelines. I also think the window locations hadn't really changed that much. The egress windows are in the back, very far from the closest neighbor in the backyard. And I agree with the staff at looking at the existing building and the site conditions. The proposal doesn't significantly impact the privacy and views, sunlight of any of the neighboring properties, just slightly on that one side. So I can also make all the findings to move to approve this project.
All right. Thank you, Jim. For my part, I think that it's great to see the project live within the architectural means, so to speak, of the area. You've kept it simple. You've kept it straightforward. It's nice to sort of see something like that without wanting to get grandiose or taller, wider, bigger to a large degree. So it's great you've stuck with what's there, made it better. And I don't think there's any argument. I'm not going to belabor this anymore. I can make all the findings. So with that said, I think it's time for a motion from commissioners here.
I would like to move to approve in the matter of design review application PL 24-0079 for a 589 square foot addition to the first floor and 259 square foot addition to the second floor of an existing two-story home at 515 Oakdale Avenue.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we got it. And we need a roll call.
Commissioner Bendel,
Yes.
Commissioner Beshoyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenny,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rizzo,
Yes.
and Chair Chase.
Yes. You have something to read, Claire, about this. Rights, appeal rights.
There is a 10-day appeal period. It is a $300 application fee. The appeal forms are available on the town's website and also in person at Town Hall.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, folks, you have, now you got to get some building plans. All right. Thank you.
Everyone is here.
Okay. So what we are here tonight, also in addition to that, is 800 Corte Madera Avenue. I'm going to read this. Design review application PL 24-0048 and variance application PL 25-0016 to allow a second driveway at 800 Corte Madera Avenue, including retaining walls exceeding 3 feet in height within the required rear yard setback. So this has got Martha's name on it to present. So.
Good evening, Chair Chase, members of the commission and members of the public. The next item before you this evening is a design review and a variance application for a second driveway at 800 Corte Madera Avenue, which includes retaining walls exceeding 3 feet in height in the required rear yard setback. The primary purpose of the proposed driveway is to enhance emergency egress and to improve access for the fire department. The new driveway would be used by the occupants of the residence, and any visitors, staff, or delivery trucks would continue to use the existing driveway on Corte Madera Avenue. The project includes the construction of a second driveway in the northern portion of the property. The driveway results in an increase of about 0.5 percentage point to lot coverage. And in the R1C zoning district, there is no lot coverage standard, but rather lot coverage is reviewed through the design review process. The project includes the construction of retaining walls on either side of the proposed driveway, which are being used to create a level driving surface. These retaining walls range in height from 0.5 feet to 12 feet 5 inches at the tallest point. Associated improvements also include an entry gate, grading, drainage, and lighting. The project would remove 47 trees and would replant 32 trees. And there'll be some additional information on the removal of trees and replacement planting in a subsequent slide. The project site is located at 800 Corte Madera Avenue, as shown on this slide. It has a general plan land use designation of open residential and is zoned R1C. It is also within the hillside land capacity overlay. The property is irregularly shaped. It is approximately 11.38 acres, which is more than double the minimum parcel size of the R1C district, which is 5 acres. The topography of the site is steeply sloped with an average slope of 52%. And it is also located within the wildland urban interface, also known as the WUI. The property is in the southwestern portion of Corte Madera at the border with Mill Valley. Located to the south of the project site is the Alto Bowl Open Space Preserve, which includes a variety of public trails, and this preserve is located within Mill Valley's city limits. Located to the north are single-family residences, which are in Corte Madera, and there are homes on Chapman, Alta Terrace, and Sausalito Street. The site is developed with an approximate 6,400 square foot single-family residence that was built in the early 2000s. There are also a variety of accessory structures on the site as well. There's also a swimming pool, a sports court, and raised planter beds. Access to the site and to the various buildings are all provided from Corte Madera Avenue. The additional driveway would not facilitate any development beyond what is already allowed in by the zoning ordinance. And this site plan also shows in the hatch mark the area of the proposed second driveway. The proposed driveway would begin at the end of the hairpin turn on Alta Terrace and extend upslope to the existing rear service road on 800 Corte Madera Avenue. A portion of the proposed right-of-way is located within the town right-of-way, and as such, a license agreement would be required to be executed between the property owners and the town for the proposed improvements within the right-of-way. The picture on the left shows the view from the bottom of the driveway, and the picture on the right shows the view from the pedestrian path. And the pedestrian path will continue to be accessible to the public. The grading associated with the driveway includes 370 cubic yards of cut and 875 cubic yards of fill. Since the total exceeds 1,000 cubic yards, a town council approval of the grading permit is required prior to issuance of a grading permit or a building permit. This graphic illustrates the areas of cut and fill. The white color indicates that there is neither cut or fill. The darkest green indicates the greatest volume of fill, which is up to 12 feet. And the darkest red color indicates the greatest volume of cut, which is a maximum of 10 feet. Most of the cut is occurring at the lower portion of the driveway, and the highest areas of fill are occurring midway up at the turn, and then also at the upper portion of the driveway. As mentioned, any increase to lot coverage in the R1C zoning district requires design review approval. This slide shows existing lot coverage at the property, which is about 3.5%. And then a total of 2,300 square feet of lot coverage is being added. The portions of the hardscape of the driveway that contribute to lot coverage are portions when there is fill being added that's greater than 3 feet in height. So those areas contribute to lot coverage. So the proposed lot coverage is about 0.5%, which results in a total lot coverage of 4%. This slide is a section B from the project plans, and it is, I've included it to help illustrate when the driveway is counting as coverage and when it is not. So the dashed line is the natural grade of the site. And the green shown on the left-hand side of this graphic is when fill is being added and it's building up the site. And in this case, the fill it's greater than 3 feet in height. So it's adding lot coverage. On the right-hand side is a portion where dirt is being removed. And so this is not contributing to lot coverage on the site. The removal of a tree in Corte Madera requires a tree permit unless it is specifically exempted. Exemptions include such things of it being less than permit size, it being an undesirable species, or a fire-prone tree that is deemed a fire hazard, or if a tree is being removed for emergencies, or if it is being removed as a result of a view or sunlight claim. The project proposes to remove a total of 47 trees as shown on this slide. About half of the trees proposed for removal have been identified as in poor health, and over half, 30, are California bay laurels. The applicant looked at several different alignments for the driveway, and the current alignment avoids the most redwoods and oak trees on the site. The applicant is proposing to plant 32 trees on site, which include redwoods, toyons, maple, hazelnut, and California buckeye. 10 of the trees would be planted in the area of the site where the trees are being removed, and then 22 trees would be planted in the western portion of the property. The proposed species, size, and location of the replanting has been reviewed by both the town's consulting arborist, Kent Julin of Arbor Science, and also by the fire department. The fire chief, Ruben Martin, reviewed the proposed driveway and met the design team on site in August of 2024 to discuss the proposed driveway. Several modifications were made to the original design based on feedback from the fire department. These changes included such things as adding a Knox box, increasing turnout sizes, increasing the width of the driveway at certain locations, and modifying the radii at the switchback and the top of the driveway. The proposed driveway has been specifically designed to meet the fire department's emergency access requirements, which would improve response time and facilitate a more effective fire suppression response to the site. The applicant introduced the project to some of the immediate neighbors in February of 2024. A letter was sent to 5 neighbors on Alta Terrace, 2 neighbors on Alta Way, and then 6 neighbors on Sausalito Street. There was a neighborhood meeting that was held at the site in March, which was attended by two neighbors. And then since that time, the town received comments and concerns from other neighbors within the broader neighborhood. So there was a community meeting that was held on site on December 12th, 2024, which was attended by planning, a fire chief, the applicant team, and approximately 15 neighbors attended the meeting. There are a variety of concerns that were expressed by the neighbors that attended. And one of the main concerns was additional trips on this driveway resulting in traffic in the neighborhood. There was a response prepared by the applicant that summarizes the various concerns that were expressed at the meeting, and that was included as attachment 7 to the staff report. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the resolution approve the project, which is included as attachment 1. Adoption of the resolution would approve the design review and variance application. The resolution includes an analysis of both the design review and the variance findings, which I'm available to answer any questions about, and also available for questions about the project as well. And then our fire chief, Ruben Martin, is here in person, and then Public Works Director, RJ Suko, was also participating via Zoom, and both are available for questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Martha. So the way we'll do this tonight is to ask questions of staff by the commission. Then we'll hear the applicant's proposal. We will ask the applicant questions, and at that point, we'll open it up for public comment. Then we'll deliberate about it and possibly ask more questions, and hopefully get to a conclusion at some point. So I'm going to start out by asking the commissioners if they have questions for staff at this point. Valerie, do you have any questions for staff?
I do, yes. Where do currently people park in that area if they want to use the public trail that is right away?
There's pretty limited parking. There's not parking at the trail for people to park in. So I think the trail's used a lot by neighbors or by residents that live in the neighbor that walk from their homes. But anyone else who was using that trail that didn't live in the area would likely park on public street, maybe on Sausalito Street or Alta, and then walk to the trail.
Got it. All right, thank you. And what is the stance from the fire department on this one? Is the additional driveway required or is just recommended and good to have?
The additional driveway is not required. And whenever a project is proposed, it's required to meet current standards. So the driveway was designed to meet fire department standards, but it was not a requirement of the fire department. Ruben, if you want to add in.
Okay, thank you. And given the significant grading that is going to happen there, how the staff will ensure that the erosion doesn't affect the lower streets as well as the neighborhood properties? And whether the hydrology report will be required to analyze that?
So there is a condition of approval that precludes any grading during the rainy season. So they would not be allowed to do any grading during that time, which is runs from April to October through April, is the timeline. The driveway does include a drainage, which would improve, and the engineer can speak to this, the drainage that's proposed as part of the retaining walls, which has been designed so that there's not sheet flowing down, but it's a dissipated flow.
And is there any concerns by amount of the hardscape that will be added in comparison to the greenfield areas for the erosion, from the erosion standpoint of view?
I think I will defer to RJ on that question.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Well, we'll get to, okay, go ahead, RJ, if you heard the question.
Yeah, they've done a adequate job of designing for drainage, so we're confident in that component of the design. No concerns from Public Works.
Okay, so can we have the volume for RJ increased a little bit somehow? So they have to submit a erosion control plan as a part of the building permit.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm looking at the screen and you're next to Mr. Kenny on the screen. So we'll let Daniel ask his questions.
Okay, thank you. This would be for Martha. Staff said that there would be no potential additional development or housing units. I'd like more elaboration on that because the site they could subdivide the site and get at least under current zoning one more unit, but I'd also like to hear how any affordable housing legislation might impact this or accessory dwellings, and to what extent this second driveway would facilitate any of those things.
So the existing site is zoned R1C, which has a minimum parcel size of 5 acres. The existing parcel is approximately 11.4 acres. So they theoretically could subdivide it into 2 using the normal map application. However, this property is in the hillside land capacity overlay, which oftentimes precludes someone from splitting the property because you look at the different slopes of the site, and then there's a formula to determine if the property could be split. So we would have to go through that exercise. However, they could use Senate Bill 9 to split the property into two. So they could currently do that now, and as could all of the property owners in the vicinity. SB 9 allows any property, as long as it is 2,400 square feet, I believe, to be split into two. But other than that, the driveway would not facilitate development beyond what's allowed currently, which is just the two properties. And this parcel is zoned R1C, which is the least intensive of the residential zoning districts. And it's really designed for properties that have some unique characteristics, such as being steeply sloped and also adjacent to open space areas, which this property meets both of those. So it is very unlikely the zoning would ever be modified in the future to allow any development beyond what's currently allowed. And as far as state housing lots, impossible to predict the future, but we don't really know what the legislature could do down the road. They don't seem to be, I think they're more focused on multifamily housing in more kind of infill sites versus a site like this.
And thank you. The applicant said this would just be used as access for the residents, and that service and staff would be coming from the existing entrance off of Corte Madera Avenue. How can the staff monitor that? Is it feasible to be able to monitor that? I mean, how do you know whether the person driving up is staff or one of the residents?
So yeah, there is a condition of approval that limits the use of the driveway to just the occupants. And it's limited to what the average is in the ITE manual, which is about 9 trips for a single family property. So I think what would happen is if additional people were using the driveway, the neighbors would likely let planning or public works know that they've noticing a lot of additional trips, and it seems like it's more than just the owners. And then at that point, we would monitor, there's ways that we can track the number of trips, and I'll let RJ speak to this more. And the condition of approval does state that the town could install bollards or something else to preclude the property from using the right of way. And RJ, I don't know if you want to talk more about how we would monitor vehicle trips.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not our initial intent to be monitoring, what we think are very low volumes. But if there was enough, complaints and evidence provided by nearby community members or residences, then obviously we would take a look. And, we have our means of tracking trips, whether that's, putting down traffic tubes or game cameras or other things within the right of way to determine that. And if they're excessively, exceeding that number on a regular basis, then, we have some measures in the conditions to, look, it connects to the right of way. We have the ability to put in temporary barriers or permanent barriers within the public right of way if we deem so. And we're trying to be upfront about that in the conditions of approval. And it's really not where we want to go. We think it's a reasonable amount of trips a day. And if everyone's, following, what they're saying, it shouldn't be a big issue. But yeah, we do have those backup measures just in case.
So I'm very concerned about the construction impacts because there's a lot of earth being moved here. And a lot of earth being removed from the site. So we're going to have some very large pieces of equipment, I presume. And the current conditions, I think, may not be adequate. Particularly, I think both construction workers, deliveries, and equipment should not be allowed to use out the way for access for construction. It's a narrow street with blind curves and already has a lot of traffic, cut through traffic. So I'm not sure how, I'd like to see something in the conditions that's very explicit and includes penalties should any of the workers or vehicles use out the way for access for this construction. I also wonder if it's possible to limit construction access off of Alta Terrace and rather come through the site from above.
All right, we can talk about some of that, those statements later, but I think that the applicant can respond to some of those questions. Staff could respond to limiting traffic on those roads if there's some basis for doing that as a rule. I had also questions about the road use, but can you answer any of Commissioner Kenny's concerns there regarding road access?
I mean, there's conditions that the applicant is required to submit a construction management plan and parking plan, which would be reviewed closely by both planning and public works. And we would look at such thing as staging of equipment and parking. There was a concern expressed by neighbors that if there is heavy equipment using Alta Terrace and those roads in the area, that it would result in damage to the street, which was a concern because this roadway was just recently repaved not too long ago. So we did add a condition of approval that requires them to do a pre and a post survey to document the conditions of the roadway. And if any damage is done to the roads from this project, they have a very short amount of time to fix that condition.
One last question. The portion of the drive that goes over the town right of way is gravel. Is that a requirement or a request of the DPW or the fire marshal? And I guess why is that not paved?
I'll let the applicant speak to that, but it's not a requirement of the town that it be gravel.
I think that's it for now.
All right, so Commissioner Kenny, you're talking about the distance from the end of pavement now across the town right away to the start of the road up the proposed road up the hill. Is that what you're speaking to?
Correct. Yeah. And I don't know, gravel moves and heavy rains can affect it and so forth. So I just would like to know what the reasoning is.
Well, now that you've asked the question, I'm going to ask RJ if since that has to be a road that will support a fire engine, is there any reason why they couldn't pave that, or if they offered to? Is there anything in the town easement restrictions that would keep that from being paved?
I think, from public works perspective, we're fine if they want to pave it. I think that would make sense. At the same time, it was kind of their proposal as such. And so, we do have, not many, but we do have a couple, gravel, earthen, paper streets around town. So, and they do function, obviously not at the same level as a paved roadway, but, really this is, an extension of a driveway that connects to a private, to a public road. So, and based on feedback, it's, very low volume. So, we're totally fine if they want to. It's not going to be a requirement for public works.
Let me rephrase the question then. If that roadway from the end of pavement to the start of their road is designed in accordance with Caltrans standards or whatever for a gravel road, then it would be adequately drained and bermed, et cetera, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that's a possibility, is keep it gravel, and then it would be 3/4 minus roadway or something like that over an appropriate roadbed that would support a fire engine.
So the fire chief just said they require all weather surface, so that actually would be required to be paved.
Okay. Got it.
One more question I just thought of. There's a reference, I think, to a rumble strip at the very beginning of this road. I'm not quite sure what that design is or why they're putting a rumble strip in? Because that also can cause noise when vehicles go over it, affecting neighbors.
I will also defer that to the applicant to answer.
Okay.
All right. So is that for now, Mr. Kenny, is that enough? We'll come back to you if you have more questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Margaret.
I just have one question. The property just about borders Mill Valley. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So if there were a fire incident of some kind, Corte Madera would respond initially. Would Mill Valley also respond?
Good evening, Ruben Martin, Fire Chief with Central Marin Fire. Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, so we would have a automatic response of 5 of the closest resources, whether it would be our neighbors from Mill Valley, along with Central Marin units responding to a house fire. Now, if it's a vegetation fire, you would also get a much larger response, and it's a much more regional coordinated response. So you'll get response from Southern Marin Fire Protection District, Central Marin Fire, Ross Valley Fire, Marin County Fire Department, and so forth.
And that would all happen at once if there was a vegetation fire?
Yes, because we have one coordinated fire dispatch center with all the fire agencies within the county are dispatched from the same location.
So if a vegetation fire started in that vicinity, how many trucks would you imagine?
So typically it would
Come.
depend on what we call a dispatch level, was a low, medium, or high. So say in a red flag day high event, you would get 6 county fire engines, 5 local government engines for a total of 11. You would get 2 hand crews, a bulldozer, 2 aircraft tankers, and a helicopter right off the initial dispatch.
Thank you. That's very impressive.
It takes
And
an
then for
hour.
our aircraft, they come out of Sonoma County Airport. And so
Okay.
you look at about a 30-minute turnaround time from the time they drop their payload of retardant and turn around, refill, and come back.
Okay. And if that were to happen, the residents in that area would be evacuated also?
Yes, that's correct. Depending on the size of the fire, of course. Typically we try to keep every fire less than 5 acres. However, depending on the weather, that isn't always the case. And so depending on what homes are impacted, what communities will be impacted, then we would send an alert notification through our dispatch center that would then send actionable items through your alert system, whether it's shelter in place or you need to evacuate.
Can I go on and ask another question?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Did you look at the tree report that was issued and the health of the trees that are going to be standing and removed?
I looked at the general form that was presented by in the staff report, but I didn't look independently into every individual assessed tree now.
And in your experience and estimation, would you say that trees in poor condition present a fire hazard?
Absolutely. One, it's they hold less water, so they become dry, brittle. They tend to drop, and then those tend to become fuel litter or litter on the ground or firewood, so to speak. So removing any kind of dead or dying tree, the sooner the better, is definitely going to, 1, provide to the health of the forest, and 2, reduce your fire risk in the area.
So would you say that a tree, other than a dead tree, one that's in poor condition, is that also a fire hazard?
It's both a fire hazard and a fall hazard. So depending on a poor condition tree next to a home, that's a fall hazard towards the home and or residents or children playing in the area. And it's also a fall hazard anytime there's any kind of power lines in the area, which then adds to other problems that could potentially happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then we also look at the list of trees that they're proposing to make sure that we're not removing something hazardous and putting something hazardous back in. So we try to play that balance of, can we remove something that's dying or in poor health and replace it with something that's within the natural habitat that will survive and strive well within the area, which are your oaks, your buckeyes, and your redwoods.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
No.
So I'm just going to add, that follows the Marin, Central Marin tree fire list of proposed or species that are problematic. Right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And as mentioned in the report, most of them that are being removed are bay laurels. And bay laurels tend to hold a lot of oils within it that tend to carry fire throughout the natural environment. And also, if you recall, with the sudden oak death, your bay trees are the ones that tend to propagate and carry that disease and carry it from the bays and then transfer it onto your oak trees. So there's I guess, a two-factor that you're helping there in your oak forest, keeping it healthy, and then removing some of those hazards that are there.
Okay. Thank you. I'll let Jim go ahead here.
All right. I'm curious. I know that you guys have been working on evacuation plans and clearing, and there's a little path there that goes to the open space. Is that an area that's considered a pedestrian evac? Go over the hill like?
No.
No.
So it's basically a paper street that has basically been abandoned or was first created when they were first laying out what the town should look like, but it was never developed. So it's basically a dirt road to nowhere. And what it leads to is to the Bob Mindo Trail, which starts off at the very end of Sausalito at the Coach Fire Road, and then kind of wraps around the base of the Alto Bowl, and will then come out to the top of Corte Madera Avenue or Camino Alto, so to say. However, in an evacuation, depending on how severe it is, as we've seen how severe some of these fires are, we have to take our own safety into our own hands. And as a homeowner and a father, I will take every method that I can to get my family out. And so what we do is we try to educate the homeowners prior to the incident to try to understand what are your ways out. Have more than one if you possibly can. We're always preaching to property owners, know 2 ways out. If you can, out of your property, if you have the ability, and then 2 ways out of your community if there's a way. As we all seen, our communities, not all of them have that luxury. And so where we can, we try to create those extra ingress and egress points wherever possible within the community.
Okay. And I read in the report that the existing access to the site isn't appropriate for today's standards. Is our equipment too big to bring into that site? Is there a fire hydrant nearby, or is there going to be a problem to fight a house fire there?
So basically what it is when we say it's not conducive to today's standards is driveway widths. So driveway widths for residential communities are typically anywhere between 10 and 12 feet, 12 being pretty standard. However, in a mountainous community or an area that's prone to fires, you need a wider driveway to be able to get more fire trucks through, going both ways, plus to be able to get residents out as people are coming in. And then plus it allows the firefighters to tuck in a driveway as close as you possibly can to a house, and then be able to get out of that fire engine to be able to then deploy your hose lines to try to defend that home against fire. The front entrance, I believe it's about 12 feet in width. So in today's standards, if they were building the house from scratch, we would require it for it to be 16 feet. The previous property owner had installed a private fire protection system within the property that includes several fire hydrants that are then supplied there with a pretty massive fire pump that keeps it well stocked and usable and ready for us to access it in the event of an incident.
Is there a turner? Is there enough turning radius on?
So there's
there?
it's a big looped driveway that once you're in, you got to take the entire loop all the way around. What they're proposing with the new driveway off the rear is actually has a fire truck turnaround that allows us to turn around and then come back and go out the other way if we need be. Or at least it gives us an immediate access off of the backside if we need to. I would say 90% of the time we would probably access the site off of 800 Corte Madera Avenue, just because typically right now, that's how we go. However, if we've got a secondary access, that gives our firefighters options. And what we like is options. as opposed to being pigeonholed into one direction.
Mhm. And would that driveway act as a fire break?
Yes, it will. Because now you're adding 16 feet of removed vegetation
Mhm.
that then creates a little bit of a fuel break between the homes on Sausalito to the top of the Corte Madera Ridge, which would then eventually potentially be a small break that will get it hopefully away from Christmas Tree Hill.
And that, along with removing some of the thinning of the trees, would align with the climate action plan that,
Yeah, exactly. So removal of the trees will help. It'll thin out the forest. It'll allow the mature, healthy trees to survive.
Mhm.
And it'll remove a lot of the fuel that's on the ground there. And then the property owner has done a great job at reducing a lot of the fuel loading on that property site after we've gone and walked through them several times
Sure.
and made several recommendations. So they're being very proactive in trying to reduce the fire risk to the entire community.
thank you.
Yeah.
I've got one for RJ. I'm sorry I missed the last few meetings, but I know that there was some talks about how Public Works does how they analyze the grading permit. And I was just curious on a situation here, if the geotech report came in fine and the underground water and everything, what do you use to kind of approve, what's your guidelines to approve or disapprove of a grading permit of this scale?
Yeah, obviously, we want to make sure it's properly engineered, and we believe they have a qualified engineering team. Secondly, we would look at, their construction plan and how they, plan to actually implement. I do want to kind of correct one thing I heard is, we do offer grading sometimes in the wet months as long as it's properly planned out and engineered. That's really contingent on how they propose it. It's not a kind of blanket no grading in the wet season. But obviously, I think this would be one of those projects, given the magnitude, that you would really probably be best off waiting. But I just want to throw that out there. I don't want to say it's a hard line on that. But really, it comes down to their contractors' experience and their plan on how they're going to execute that matters the most. And then otherwise, on our end, given the scale and overall volume of earthwork, and that it's going to require a permit from, that goes to town council for approval. We have the opportunity to do supervised grading. So as they're doing the work, we'll likely have a third-party geotechnical inspector there. Most days, at least for a portion of the day, verifying that things are being done to our standards.
And as a part of the permit process, when you're approving the management plan, the construction management plan, is you also approve a route for the dump when it comes to this size of a excavation project?
They're required to take it to legal dump site.
Well, I mean, like not through the neighborhood, up the gate, like is there some cities actually want us to map out like?
Sure. They'll present it and we'll look at it. It's one of those, it is, we want to be, objective here, right? So, we don't want to impose some precedents that we're not going to impose elsewhere. So we do review that. And obviously any damage to the public roadways, if we can prove it, that we can hold them accountable. But, these are in all likelihood public streets that they're using. So we have to treat everyone in a fair and reasonable stance. So, but yeah, we will review that.
Thank you.
I'm going to follow up on this issue before I let Valerie ask a follow-up question here. So the soils report will be a part of the grading application. Is that correct? Or will there be a soils report or a geotech report as a part of that? So that will say what use the soils may have on site or all off-haul. Is that fair to say, or that impacts the permit that you issue because on the amount of soil that's being reused or off-hauled and import? Do you get my question there about that? No. Okay. So,
Sorry, sure, or I if you're talking to me. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, they've exceeded the threshold. They'll need, sounds like it needs council approval. It'll be the geotechnical report that will determine whether some of that material can be reused or not. And our primary focus is going to be that it's constructed and properly engineered and implemented in construction to the engineering recommendations.
right. So it says cut and fill exceeds 1,000 cubic yards. So that means that certainly you're cutting 370 cubic yards and 875 of fill. So is any of the cut material going to be able to be used for the fill material getting engineered on site? So the question is, does that come up if they propose it in the application for grading? Do they propose that at that point, thusly reducing the number of road trips in and out of the site? That's what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, and we're certainly if the geotech has reviewed that material and is comfortable reusing it, you know, in all likelihood, we're going to be fine with that.
Okay, but that does come up in the application. That's my other question. That's a part of it, that you require that assessment of it?
We don't require that it's reviewed for reuse. You know, that's generally a good practice, just for a number of reasons, reducing costs, just, you know, being considerate of, you know, the environment and all the truck trips. But it's not, I don't think we have a code that says you must review that.
And that's not, you can't state that without knowing what's there. So, and how it might be used. All right. I can abbreviate this subject and turn it over to Valerie.
I just have a quick follow-up in regards to the trees classification between the poor, fair, and good. What data kind of goes along with the benchmarking? What is poor versus what is fair in terms of the fire hazards?
Well, when it comes to a fire hazard, when it comes to a tree removal, we would ask for an arborist report because they are the true tree experts when it comes to the health of a tree. Now, I look at a tree and based on my 23 years experience in the fire service, I can tell you whether a tree's dying or not, but I can't tell you whether it's classified as poor or fair underneath the standards that arborists use. So other than a species and the ability that it looks like it's dying, then I can require a homeowner to remove that tree, if that
Right.
makes sense.
So when the trees are classified as fair, you would consider them, you know, prone to the fire hazard and they should be removed. Is that?
Depending on the species. So there
see.
are times where there's a species and it's a live tree.
Mhm.
However, if it's a proximity to a home and it's causing a hazard, then we would have that tree removed. And if it could be in good condition aside from fair and still have it removed.
I see.
And so for us, when it comes to, I guess the definition of a fair and a poor tree, I would rely that and leave that onto the arborist definitions. I could only look at it whether it's a species and whether in my determination, I feel like it's dying and causing a specific hazard or a specific risk and increase to the home.
So in the application, the trees that have been marked for removal in the fair as well as the good condition under your assessment are necessary to remove from the site. Is that accurate statement?
Well, they would be necessary to be removed as part of the project. Now, if there was
Okay.
no project happening, then the trees located there, if they're more than 150 feet to 200 feet from the home, then they probably wouldn't be required to be removed from the site.
Yeah.
It's similar to walking out in the middle of the open space and trying to figure out what trees should I remove. If it's a tree in poor condition and it's not a hazard to anyone, we would just leave it alone.
I see. All right, thank you.
Okay. That's all from the commissioners now for staff at this point. Is that correct? All right, great. So we're going to turn it over to the applicant to make their presentation.
Just give me a second. I'm pulling up the slideshow.
Good evening, Chair Chase, members of the commission. My name is Sean Kennings with LAK Associates. I'm a planning consultant. Full disclosure, I've worked for the town in the past. I've worked on projects here. I have not worked for the town for over 4 years now. Waiting for my presentation. I'm here with some of our members of our project team. Our project engineer unfortunately could not be here tonight, but he is on the Zoom. So if you have very specific questions about the engineering, he's available to answer those. Thank you to Martha and to staff, Chief Martin, Director Succo. We worked collaboratively with staff, with the fire department, with Department of Public Works to make sure that this works fundamentally from a design standpoint, and to come up with something that would work for both the applicant and for the town. Next slide, please. I'm not going to dwell too long on this because Martha did a fantastic job of making the presentation. I would like to be able to reserve some time to rebut. There's a lot of people here, I think, to speak in opposition of this, and we'd like to be able to answer some of their questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just one thing to note, as Martha already explained, this is a very unique site. It's an R1C zoning and an OR open residential. This is the only open residential parcel in town. There's very few other R1Cs. So it has a unique development standard for rear yard setback of 100 feet, which basically encumbers the entirety of that back setback up to the development footprint. We've gone through this process. It's taken over a year now in terms of planning and design, outreach. We've had multiple outreach meetings. We've sent letters to the neighbors. We've answered their questions. As part of the staff report, you can see the response from the project team to the community. Next slide. Again, the primary reason for this is develop a secondary access point for the applicants, and to provide much needed emergency access. And it provides a fire department regulation driveway. And as you heard Chief Martin explain, the current driveway now is only 8 feet wide. To redevelop that driveway would require way more significant tree removal, way more grading, way more reinforced retaining walls to bring it up to a standard for access. And it still doesn't alleviate the question of a secondary access point, a secondary emergency access point. And one thing's important to note, next slide, please. You can see here, this is a Google map image of the project driveway that's there to the right, but it's at the intersection of Camino Alto, Corte Madera Avenue, and Chapman. And so people accessing the site, leaving the site, are more likely to go down Chapman into the neighborhoods. And as the questions you've heard and some of the neighbors have voiced before, they want to limit excess drive pass-through cut-throughs into their neighborhood. This secondary access point would eliminate all of that. There would be no driving on Alta Way. There'd be no driving on Chapman for the residents of the property. Next slide. As you can see here, this is the access point on Alta Terrace, which is a recently paved street. You can see that's the driveway there going straight forward with the redwood trees beyond. There would be an improved fire truck turnaround right there at that pinch point. And looking up towards the house, you wouldn't be able to see those retaining walls, the large retaining walls that they are being proposed. Next slide. Again, there's an existing single family road here. It's not new development in the terms of excessive site disturbance. The narrow driveways are flanked by trees and have a lot of topography constraints. This new driveway would be an all-weather access driveway for the fire department, meeting those standards. It includes lighting, turnouts, meets all the regulations that Department of Public Works and Fire need. And again, we coordinated heavily with both those departments to make sure that this worked for them. Next slide. Martha already talked about cut and fill, but I wanted to point this out. Those areas of highlighted there in yellow, those were the retaining walls that exceed the 3 foot that require variance. The lowest one in the middle there in the red, that's required for the turnout. So a car could pull over if a fire truck was driving by. And then the other two are where areas of fill, where it's very steep and slope, require a high retaining wall on the outside. And again, you won't be able to see these retaining walls from anywhere off-site from a visual impact standpoint. I will note that one of the questions of the commissioners talked about the gravel at the lower portion. The intent of that is to protect the redwood trees, which have shallow roots. And so the gravel, it's a compact gravel. It's over like a geogrid. It's designed to withhold a fire truck 70,000 pounds. It doesn't erode. There's no erosion qualities to it. And the rumble strip that's indicated on the plan is not for a permanent rumble strip. It's for construction staging. Next slide, please. It's a little bit harder to read on this, but it's in your project plans. This is the tree removal plan and planting plan and the fire management plan. And I think it's important to note that, yes, there are a lot of trees being removed at this, of which only 37 are permit required, 22 are bays, or 22 trees that are permit size. Most of them are bays, very few oaks or redwoods. And if you see all the dots on this, there are tons of trees on this property. It's not like we're removing 47 of the 72. It's only the 72 that were analyzed in that project area. And the majority of the replacement trees, again, are non-pyrophytic, fire-resistant redwoods, native trees. On the far left of the plan is the intent to do screening for neighbors to provide protection from them so they don't have to look up to the site. And again, redwoods off the public right-of-way for screening purposes. And the applicant is, will work with the fire department, with the town, with the neighbors, whatever the planting plan needs to be, whether it's for screening or for fire breaks or whatever the request. Next slide. So just in summation, as Martha pointed out in the staff report, staff can make the findings from a design review standpoint and from a variance standpoint. The primary reason for the variance is because of the large 100-foot setback in the rear. The retaining walls, again, are to make grade for the fire department requirement. Next slide. And again, I think it's the most important thing to point out is this is for the primary use of the applicant owners only, no staff, no visitors, and to provide enhanced emergency access. It provides vegetation management. It provides a fire break. And again, the conditions of approval that are already integrated in the staff report, they're going to videotape Alta Terrace and Sausalito to ensure that whatever the road status is today will be put back if there's any construction defects. There's a condition of approval. They're not going to be using Alta Way whatsoever. This would eliminate any reason for anybody to pass through from the 800 Corte Madera through to the other side. And this would provide the applicant direct access to Sausalito, so there wouldn't be any increased congestion or circulation problems in the neighborhood. And I'll conclude. I'm here to answer questions. Again, our project engineer is online if you have questions for him specifically.
Okay, thank you. While you're up there, we'll see if the commissioners have any questions for you. I'm going to start with you, Valerie, to ask if you have questions for Mr. Kenny.
No questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Dan, you're online there. Do you have any questions for Mr. Kenny?
Well, just that, I think he answered my question about the rumble strip and the gravel adequately. Um, one possible visual impact, and I'd like to maybe have the staff look at this, is neighbors on Sausalito, where it's past Madrono. So they're looking on the east side of Sausalito, they're looking up to that hillside. And I do think they're going to notice the significance of the tree removals, and perhaps even the downside retaining walls. So I'd like to see that evaluated and possibly some additional tree planting in that area.
Okay. I don't know if you can respond to that, John, about that view without knowing exactly how that's visible from Sausalito Street.
So again, previously, we've coordinated with the town arborist, with the fire department, with the applicant, with Martha, whatever the planting plan, whatever makes sense. Obviously, we don't want to increase the fire load. We don't want to put trees where they're not going to thrive. But if there's a screening tree requirement, I think the applicants absolutely would agree to whatever is requested.
Okay. I'm just looking at the roadmap, trying to see what you're speaking of, Daniel, but we can talk about that later on in the discussion. Martha, do you have any questions for, I'm sorry, Dan, are you done there asking Shauna with any questions? Martha, do you have any questions for this gentleman?
What, from the start of the project to the end, what time frame do you estimate that to be?
That's probably better suited for Mike Hastings, project engineer with Sherwood Engineering, and I believe he's online.
Okay.
Okay. Mike, can you hear that? Are you there?
Yes, I can. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can barely hear you, Mike.
Oh, okay. I'll try to raise my voice as much as I can, but the approximate timeline will be anywhere from 8 to 10 months, depending on when the start of the construction can begin.
So would it go through a rainy season?
If the timing is right, then ideally no.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Tim.
Hi, Sean. What materials are going to be on the wall itself? Is it going to be a concrete wall? Are you going to face it with anything? I think in the report it said it would be similar to other retaining walls, and
I think at this time it's just a pressed formed concrete, but it can be, scored or have landscaping or whatever the requirement is.
okay. And there's a mention of 25 trees being preserved. Does that mean by designing it the way you did, they're preserved and they're not or they're preserved, meaning that you guys are replanting them?
Yeah, I think it's the trees that were surveyed in the route. There was about 72 trees surveyed for where the road was going to go. Of those 72, 25 will be saved, the majority of which are redwood and oak. But there's hundreds, maybe thousands of trees on the site.
Yeah. I think they're going to be
there's
saved, but they're not necessarily being replanted.
right, but there's 32 trees on top of that.
Yeah, correct. I understand. Peter, I have just a setback question for Martha.
Of course. Yeah.
Can I do that now?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Not setback. How did we determine that this was the rear yard setback on this round site and the entrance is on Camino Alto, but it's the smallest portion of the
So
property?
the front setback is where access is provided. So what's adjacent to a roadway. So in this case, it was Corte Madera Avenue.
Okay, so, and does the retaining wall variance apply to front and side yard setbacks or only to rear?
A variance would be required for retaining walls exceeding 3 feet within any setback.
Within any set, okay. Thanks.
Okay. So at this point, then, does the applicant have any further presentation?
No further presentation, but again, if we can
Yeah.
speak to questions at a later
Right.
date.
Okay, I just want to make sure you guys get out what you would like to. All right, so with that said, then I think we'll open this up to public comment on this item. So we're going to start with people in the room. We're going to have a timer for a 3-minute commentary. Let's try to keep the line behind the podium stacked so that we don't have long gaps from people walking up to the podium. If we could do that, that would be helpful. So we're going to start off with in-the-room commentary, and then we'll go to online commentary after that. We'll be taking notes, and at the end of the period of commentary, if there are questions that need to be answered, then we'll go back to the necessary parties to answer those questions. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much for having us some time that we can respond to this situation. I'm Lucinda Smith. I live up here, up on Altaway. I am deeply connected with this whole project. To date, I think I can speak for most all of the neighbors that we do not support this project. It is a waste of time, money, and energy. It is unnecessary. They have 2 roads leading off of the single gate at 800 Corte Madera Avenue. They could modify and put another gate in and have access that would be 2, which is 1 more than any of us have. We all have 1 access. We can turn one way or we can turn the other way. They have the same thing right now out of their gate, one way or the other way, Mill Valley or Corte Madera. The purpose of the whole project started out to be additional service concerns and service access. That has modified into something that's going to be more like their primary access. And then it's also got a lot of activity now with regard to emergency. I like to call this use creep because it seems like the use that's been stated for it has crept into different areas, and we now have a whole different definition than what the original application was going to be. I think bottom line, it enables them to get faster down to downtown, to schools. It makes it easier for them to manipulate our beautiful hill and curvy streets. The neighbors on Alta Way, Alta Terrace, Fairview and above, I didn't name all the streets, but it's all up there. It's got to be somewhat about a little less than maybe 100 homes are all trying to get down the hill in the case of a fire. We have been told when a fire is there, we should leave at the warning, not the fire evacuation status. So there's going to be a lot of traffic, as we saw in the Los Angeles fires. And it makes it very difficult to have any more and have somebody coming down from this new access onto Alta Terrace. This is supposed to be one family. They have small children. Those children grow. We now have children with cars and friends. It will not be. So that leads us to monitoring this.
Okay, thank you. We've exceeded your 3-minute time on this.
It's unnecessary, believe me.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is, thank you very much for listening to me. My name is Ann Randolph. I live at 48 Alta Way, which is on the corner of also Alta Terrace and also Sausalito Street. My husband and I oppose this application to build a new primary driveway at 800 Corte Madera. Secondary driveway has been needed A secondary driveway has not been needed at 800 property for all these years. And if this is a primary driveway, is the property address changing? We have problems constantly with Google Map and Waze. How, when you, the council members were saying, how do you monitor? How are you monitoring Google and Waze? Because we always, Alta Way in general has a problem, and Alta Terrace with traffic from the highway being directed down our street. I also, because I'm at 48 Alta Way, all this traffic goes right by my house. Everybody's been saying Alta Terrace, everything. Well, the only 2 parking spaces that are free for Alta Way, Alta Terrace for all trucking is right in front of my driveway. I have recently had to replace part of the retaining walls of my property because of trucks using my driveway and getting stuck on Alta Way and Alta Terrace. And having to do the retaining walls because of big trucks. And if it's 10 months, it's going to convenience not me, but all my neighbors for any kind of parking or construction in the area. And also my attitude, if you build it, they will come. The increase in traffic in Alta Terrace is dangerous. It's very narrow roads, increasing the traffic for present LLC owners and possible future building. The climate in California, I know we have law, I've heard from the council members also about the that they can't build any ADUs and stuff, but the climate for all these changes in housing, they could possibly, with the new owner, put in a lot more housing than that. And so traffic will come with that. I'm a co-captain of the neighborhood NRG. All my neighbors have 1 driveway for egress and emergency, 2 ways go down the hill in emergencies. 800 Corte Madera has that right now and doesn't need another. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Marion Cohen. I am the owner and resident with my husband Barry of 3 Alta Terrace, which is directly adjacent to the homeowner's property that are wishing to add this driveway. We were in receipt of the letters of February 29th of 2024, asking and saying that they were in discussions with the town regarding the addition of this service road and that this improvement would allow the fire department access to the northern side of their property and therefore adding an all-season access road to the north slope and allowing their maintenance crews to maintain safe fire standards, something we are all very, very much in favor of. By the way, this letter was signed 800 Corte Madera Avenue, no names, no, that's it. So whoever these mysterious neighbors are, we really don't know. However, tonight's agenda states that we are doing a design review for a secondary driveway that would serve as the primary driveway for the property owners, whoever these people are. So there's been a very impressive presentation tonight of slides of what you are proposing. However, I have some additional concerns that I don't think were addressed in the slides. Number 1 is that this would increase the use of a very narrow and supposed private road, which is how Alta Terrace is defined by the town of Corte Madera. It would be very difficult for a fire truck to pass and reach the approach to this beautiful new driveway that is being proposed. Secondly, with all of the retaining walls that are being proposed, there is not one retaining wall that will be used to support the lower hillside approach to this driveway. Currently, this is a very unstable hillside that is supported only with old concrete sandbags that will not withstand heavy trucks or very much traffic. There needs to be, if this is approved, retaining walls added to the plan on the lower side of the hill to ensure that the weight of a fire truck or increased car usage will not collapse the lower hillside, which would greatly impact the entire road as well as the residences below the hillside. And thirdly, if this project advances, it will be a significant disruption for access and egress during the construction of this proposed project. Where will this heavy equipment be stored? Will the road be blocked at times? And what type of notification will we receive for these types of disruptions? And lastly, the topic of road maintenance, which has been sort of addressed, who will be responsible for damage to our privately maintained road that we just recently had paved, but it's still a very narrow road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My husband, Barry, will talk more about road maintenance. Thank you for your time.
Okay, who's next?
Hi, my name is William Forbes. I live on Alta Terrace, 53 Alta Terrace. I wanted to discuss the tree situation. The proposal for 800 Corte Madera Avenue includes the removal of, I think it was 47 trees, including heritage redwoods. Now, I've been here in Corte Madera since 1989. Now I'm on Alta Terrace. I remember when I purchased my home, I saw that if I removed one or two of the redwoods in front, I have about a dozen, I could have a spectacular view of the hillsides and the bay, and it would be a very cool thing. But as I researched it, it was explained to me that you can't just do that to improve your property. Otherwise, people could move in, buy houses, remove the trees, flip the houses, take the money back to whatever state they came from. And pretty soon, the natural beauty that makes this region special will be lost to real estate speculators. And the county has to protect itself from this. And these rules are good, and it's the way it's supposed to be. This is one reason that we oppose this project. Most of us could improve our property by cutting down a 100-year-old redwood tree, but we don't. I made a little list of the 20 houses in the area, and 10 of these people have been there for over 20 years. My next door neighbor's been there since the 60s, over 50 years. We're here for the long run. We've seen 800 Corte Madera Avenue being bought and sold over the years. It really is a spectacular lot, and it makes news whenever it changes hands. Well, these owners will be done in a few years too, and they'll be gone. We'll still be here. We're in here for the long haul. We have a community and a network and a support system. We deal with each other directly. We don't hire lawyers, accountants, and consultants to talk to one another. And we have a community that is built on friendship and support. For us, these parcels are part of our lives and our essential community. They're not just shiny new things that we can use to impress our friends. Thank you.
Thank you, William.
Good evening, commissioners. I appreciate your willingness to have this public input. My name is Tucker Hyatt. I am happy and lucky to live at 47 Alta Way, just 100 paces from the beautiful public path in question, that path that will soon become a driveway. But indeed, the question at hand is not principally about a driveway. It's about the fate of a beautiful, peaceful public area. The applicant wants to turn more than 2,000 square feet of that pretty wooded path adjoining Alta Terrace and a redwood grove into a private driveway. Let the record reflect my surprise. Public open space in Corte Madera is precious. I need only 1 minute, not 3, to expose what I think is the crucial flaw in the applicant's request, that the applicant wants to privatize over 2,000 square feet of Corte Madera public property. Please don't let them.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to
voice my opposition to this project as well. My name is Mary Cass. I live at 11 Alta Way with my wife. I've been there coming up for 25 years now. Like everyone in the neighborhood, we love where we live. We chose it because of its beauty. My objection, though, has nothing to do with that. My objection has more to do with the way that the applicants have made the application, initially under the guise of emergency egress. Understandably, we all want to be able to get away safely when and if a wildfire hits us hard in this neighborhood. However, they already have, as we've heard tonight, plenty of egress in comparison to the rest of the neighborhood. I feel as though this is in fact, an application for their convenience rather than for neighborhood safety. And on that is why my wife and I both stand in opposition to this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Marion?
Hello, Kevin Bucata. I live at 39 Alta Way. I came to voice my opposition to this project. I moved into town about 4 years ago on this beautiful, small, bucolic road, Alta Way, with my two daughters, and what has turned into is a bit of a nightmare of traffic. They cannot go out on the street. They cannot ride their bikes on this street because of the freeway cut through, Mill Valley cut through that this has become. I give credit to the city, RJ and others who have done things, attempts to mitigate that. My concern with this project is it takes a lot of commercial vehicles to maintain a property of that size. I think of my property and I have to multiply by 10 or 15 or so and think of the number of trips that may require. We're letting the cat out of the bag if we open this up and say, okay, it's for residential use, but we're going to monitor and there's the ability to report and the city will see what's within their control to address that. But once that driveway is there and with the changing law in California, my concern is it becomes commercial vehicle access to that property, and that exacerbates the problem we're facing in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Tom Bonomi. I live at 8 Alta Way, and I really appreciate the deliberate, thoughtful process tonight. I want to reiterate something Mary, my neighbor, noted. In the staff report, and we've heard a lot tonight about the primary reason for this road is emergency egress and access for the fire department. And I think it's become pretty clear that the primary reason is more convenience for the owners. So I've got a question for Martha. And if the reason for the road was convenience, would that have changed the staff reports and the recommendation?
You can answer that later in the
No,
dialogue.
that's a question. So I don't know if you want to answer that or not, but
She can if she will, but not at this moment. She'll do that.
okay, understood. So that's important. I think there's been a lot of good dialogue tonight about traffic related to the construction management plan, and dealing with the state of the roads as pre-construction and making sure that they're returned to that state post-construction. I think there's a lot of folks concerned about that because, as Kevin noted and a lot of other folks, super narrow, a lot of very sharp turns, and you know, it sounds like there's a thorough process set up to do that, and that's great. So I'm happy to hear that. But I'm here just to support neighbors, voice the collective concern. But I do really appreciate the thoughtful work that the commissioners and the staff put in. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing? My name is Costin Miller. I live at 34 Alta Way with my wife. I would like to just reiterate everything that everybody has come before me and said, and I'm in complete agreement with them, and we're in opposition to the project. I'd also like to make some statements as a landscape architect and just say that I think we understand that the duration of the project will probably be longer than what has been indicated, and it's going to provide a really significant impact to immediate neighbors as well as to everyone that uses those access roads. There's almost no way to really come up with a construction plan that's not going to significantly use Alta Way, Alta Terrace, Sausalito. It's would be very challenging to do the entire project from the property down and then back up and out. And even if you're just thinking at like maybe 10 yards per dump truck, which is like a small to mid-sized dump truck, we're talking upwards of 300, 400, 500 plus cubic yards of off haul, which is like 50 plus to 100 plus dump truck runs, even if they were full every single time, which they wouldn't be. So we're talking hundreds of dump trucks through the neighborhoods over the course of what's going to be years. And also that there can be created what has been described and sort of stated as an unnecessary driveway. Aside from that, the tree removal and the inability to place the trees where now quite a large driveway is going to inevitably over time result in some pretty significant erosion and degradation to that hillside overall. It's going to contribute very significantly to our stormwater on our streets and to the water that goes into like our stormwater system, because there hasn't been anything proposed to mitigate the water that comes off what used to be a hillside is now just a very, very large amount of hardscape going into a gutter. So I think for all of those reasons, there haven't really been provided any sufficient answers. And I'm pretty concerned that the outcome is going to be some heavily damaged streets, a hillside that's not going to come back, visible 6 to 10 foot concrete retaining walls from many properties. And I just would like to also point out that the container sizes and quantities of the trees for replacement are severely insufficient for what's being taken out. I mean, we were even indicating on their 5-gallon toy-ons. I mean, that's a plant that's like that big. So the notion that that's going to provide screening in any immediate time frame is not realistic. And so I just think that there's been a very weak response to what has clearly been well described and voiced concerns. That's all I have to say. And thank you for my time with y'all.
Thank you.
I don't believe that you guys do this for free. Thank you for doing your jobs. My name is David Bramnick. I live at the end of Alta Terrace, and I've lived there for 25 years. I've driven up and down that road. I've had to back up and over and out and move around so many times from trucks. There's Amazon trucks, there's UPS trucks. Trucks are coming up and down there without this extra added burden. This seems to me to be an unnecessary project. The idea of fire engines coming up in a fire when we're all trying to get down the hill, that road is not big enough to pass for one car, yet alone a fire truck and cars coming down. It's a bizarre concept that then we go on this $2 million highway up to this entitled house. And these aren't any of the neighbors. I have never met a neighbor. We don't even know who these people are. This is a secret neighbor. By the way, this is not neighborly. This wasn't done in a neighborly fashion. And this is absolutely wrong. To have these people have their own entrance to get down to the town center to do some shopping and not have, what about if we had to go up in a fire coming up the hill? Would we get to use their driveway and drive across their property and get out on Corte Madera Avenue? I mean, I think all of the reasons that this is being done are entitled, are unnecessary. To spend millions of dollars on consultants and road building and tree replacement to give them a chance to take their kids to school or go shopping is completely ridiculous. By the way, I appreciate your time, and I think that this thing hasn't been thought through. It's been railroaded. We feel like we're here now, and this is a fait accompli. This is already done. This thing has already been approved on so many levels on a technical basis, but with no regard to the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paula Frankel. I've lived on Chapman Drive for 32 years, and I agree with everyone who's come up and opposed this project. The applicant has identified as an LLC. They haven't taken any courtesy to meet with us face to face. We have no idea who they are. I walk my dog every day on this beautiful road, and Waves has been sending cars over Alta Way when the 101 is backed up and people speed on the road. I'm constantly asking them to slow down. We don't need more traffic on that road. It is already not safe for kids or people walking. There's no sidewalks, so we're walking on the road facing traffic. And I really oppose this project. It is unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Evening, everybody. My name's Barry Cohen. I live at 3 Alta Terrace with my wife. It abuts directly up against this property. It's the closest one to it. I'll start by saying I agree with everything that's been said by those that have come before me. And I can tell you that we lived through a little bit of this because we built that house in 2006 or 2005. And when we built our house, we engaged a little differently with our neighbors. We went to meet them. We went to talk with them. We listened to their concerns. One neighbor said our house was too tall. We cut it down 10 feet. We went to a planning meeting and 10 of the neighbors showed up to approve it because of how we approached our neighborhood. This is lacking here. I get that they have the right to hire consultants to do it, but it does not feel neighborly. Now let's talk about Alta Terrace. Alta Terrace has been a bit of an issue for us. The town at some points claims it's not a town property, it's a private property. But when we want to get it, and so when we wanted to have it paved, we had to pave it. And because we had built a house and had many trucks come in because we removed trees as well, by the way, we planted 50% more trees than we removed, just mentioning. But because of that, there was concern that the trucks with the rubber tires were causing problems with the road. When we had to repave the road, we volunteered to pay more because we had trucks on the street. I see nothing so far that talks about, if this were to go through, about what these people would do in terms of road maintenance. My wife mentioned the fact that at the hairpin turn, that street is sitting on concrete bags. It really needs to have a Versalock wall put in. If you're going to bring in hundreds of trucks and all kinds of heavy equipment, that should be part of this. In fact, there should be a covenant that says that there's money put into a bond of some sort to take care of the road if this transpires. I still object to it. You heard everybody else object to it, but there should be something involved here that protects us if and when. I don't see anything being discussed along those lines. The other aspects were that it was initially discussed as only for emergency egress and fire and things of that sort. And I still think it's going to be way narrower than where they are on the main road coming up for fire. But it's all of a sudden evolved and morphed. Now it's a primary driveway. So to one of the points that was asked of Martha, well, how would it have been approved if that was the case? I don't know. But it did morph, and it kind of morphed right under our eyes. I guess that's my time. Was that my beep?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good evening, and thank you for your work here. I know it's hard. And I thank the staff for their report. And I agree my name is David Zeff. I live at 650 Chapman Drive with Paula Frankel, but our entrance is on Alta Way, and we walk our dogs every day on Alta Way. We use that public right-of-way, which is now a redwood chip and leaf sanctuary for the whole neighborhood. Kids build forts there. People take their kids there. It's a safe place because traffic is unsafe on Alta Way. I think before you vote on this, you should recess and table it and come and meet with us up there, all of the neighbors who are very concerned. You should come and we can show you exactly what we object to and why. We can show you alternate paths that these people could build on their property that would give them another method of egress and fire that wouldn't impact a privately maintained road, that wouldn't take away public resources, which is this serene little public right-of-way that we all use, would not impact the trails, and would actually just come down to Chapman Drive, which is a town-maintained road, so that none of all these people who live on Alta Terrace pay to keep that road in shape. And it's just ridiculous to think that someone can come in and take 2,000 square feet of public property that is a sanctuary and utilize a public road for their own convenience or even for emergency if there's a better alternative. And there is. There's a road that goes all the way around that property. They could widen that road a bit. And there are other areas of egress down to Chapman Drive that would give them an extra exit, give the fire trucks a better entrance to their property. And with their fire hydrants, which are up there, they probably can fight the fire themselves anyway. And as everybody rightly pointed out, whenever a fire comes, everybody's going to be heading downhill and the trucks aren't going to get up anyway. I think that the use of that public maintained property for the owners of a use is just unreasonable. It's destruction of the serenity of that neighborhood space. There's maximum impact on Sausalito Street. And you should talk to you guys haven't met with the Sausalito neighbors. They don't even know this is happening. And they should know because they're at a choke point too. I really urge you to adjourn this, come and have a public meeting with us at the site. We'll get the Sausalito neighbors and you'll hear the full story. No one's talked about water flow. When it rains, that street turns into a river. It's going to be even worse. The road is not going to be a fire break. In a firestorm, a 10-foot road is not a fire break. They don't need a primary exit there. They've got so many hydrants on their property. I think that, again, the construction impacts on Sausalito, Alta Way, and Alta Terrace would be excessive. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a slogan. There's a chain, and Forbes was supposed to address this. There's a chain across that public access now because people used to park their cars there and leave them there. Okay. Everything. We must maintain the chain. Maintain the chain.
We've kept we saw the chain, right? All right. Who else in the room would like to speak? Anyone else? Okay, we're gonna, so you're sort of the applicant rebuttal. We'll give you a more second. I want to check online here. Do we have anybody online?
I see one hand online.
Please.
Darlene, you're going to be allowed to unmute yourself right now if you want to try it.
Is that good?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello, thank you very much for having this meeting. My name is Darlene Hyatt. I live at 47 Alta Way along with my husband Tucker Hyatt, who spoke earlier there at the meeting in person. I echo and truly agree with everything that my neighbors have said about with those who have objected to this proposal this evening. I was present at the original meeting that took place on March 12th, 2024. The civil engineer from the town, Drew Norton, was there along with the other people involved to discuss this new driveway. And at that time, it was proposed that the new driveway would be for a fire and emergency access road only. And that it would have minimal impact on the current natural setting of the woods. The change proposal to make this new driveway now their primary driveway would have, and also affecting the woods that presents as a very quiet, peaceful access for people that live in the neighborhood to walk their dogs, and it's not at all intruded upon by cars. Anyway, this new proposal to have it as a primary driveway would have significant impact on the natural, peaceful setting of these woods and also on the traffic on Alta Terrace. I feel that this was a misrepresentation of what had been presented to us, and I also object to this project. I appreciate Commissioner Kenny's comments on truck equipment for construction. To even think that this could be accommodated on a narrow road such as Alta Terrace for so many months, I think is absolutely logistically and realistically not viable. I think tonight you did address how monitoring whether or not compliance would be made to only use this primary road by family members only. Thank you for addressing that, because I wouldn't know how, as neighbors, we would have the recourse to address this with faceless and unidentified neighbors. So my concern is access via Alta Terrace and the new driveway may be taken advantage of beyond the scope of its proposed usage. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Darlene.
You're welcome.
Okay, does that extend the list of hands up?
I also received a comment. Sorry, I just want to turn off the talking. I received a comment on our public comment email that I'm going to read. But I don't see any other hands up. Let me double check.
Are you trying to decipher it? No.
Yeah, they added just a little bit more to it. So they signed this at the bottom, but to start, this is from Carrie Ann and Derek Brinkman at 659 Chapman. To the Corte Madera Planning Commission, we are writing in support of our neighbors at 800 Corte Madera Ave proposed additional driveway project and to urge this commission to please approve. We are convinced that this project will improve firefighter access and fire safety for the entire neighborhood, something that is very important to us and our family. We also appreciate that it will help reduce traffic and congestion on Chapman and Alta Roy, which will benefit everyone in the area. Furthermore, we've reviewed the proposal and don't see any downsides. We hope the project is approved and moves forward smoothly. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Carrie Ann and Derek Brinkman of 659 Chapman. And they added another thought that was, I'd like to add that creating better access for the fire department and the tree work proposed is only going to make our neighborhood safer from fire danger, especially with a property that has as many trees as this property does. We are on Chapman and that road on a good day is congested with very little traffic and often has backup. So from our perspective, this is a positive development as it will give us peace of mind that there will be better access.
Okay, thank you. So that comprises the online response that we have. Okay. So with no one else in the room going to contribute to a public comment, we have Mr. Kennings that could respond, but we also have Leonard Rifkin here tonight to provide a response. So I'll give you a little more than 3 minutes. I think you can have 5 minutes here to respond to this.
Thank you, Chairman Chase, Len Rifkind Law Group, San Rafael, and also Larkspur resident for 30 years and lifelong Marin County resident. I certainly heard all of the neighbors speak, and everyone is always concerned whenever there's change. Human beings by nature don't like change. But what this commission's job, of course, is you're a planning commission. And so your job as planning commissioners is to determine, after reviewing the staff report and the Corte Madera Municipal Code, is whether or not you can make findings of design review approval and a variance. And that's really what is the job before you. And the staff has set forth very clearly that, at least in staff's opinion, as well as not only from planning, public works, but you've also heard from the fire chief, all of staff support that this project is feasible and that findings can be made. And I would suggest that the commission consider the opinions of staff in that regard. I also ask everyone to think about, and I was listening to very carefully the neighbors, and I took many notes, and I obviously can't respond to all the comments in a few minutes here. But we all certainly experienced the LA fires, if not personally, or obviously must have known people there, and what an unmitigated, incredible, horrific disaster that was. And there's no question that it's a matter of when, not if, here in Marin County, we have just been dodging a bullet that we're going to have our own very large fire. And anything that would improve the fire safety of the neighborhood is something that probably should be seriously considered. And this driveway that we're talking about meets all the fire standards. A fire apparatus can negotiate up it because of the width and the angle and the way and the engineering and all of that. And you heard the fire chief say it will be a fire break. So I urge the commission to consider from a fire safety standpoint how important something like this is. Now, all the neighbors are concerned. They say, it's convenience. It's not needed. It's not a necessary project. I think that if someone wants to do an improvement to their house, this is what you people do here. People come before you twice a month. You're hearing about everyone wanting to do improvements to his or her house. This is a driveway that we're talking about. And no one can challenge that it won't make it safer. In fact, I understand, I've only been to the property just a couple of times, but actually there is a problem with the owners who live there on the existing driveway that is not safe. When they try to head out, they sometimes have helpers, workers, vendors coming up, and it's a dangerous condition. They can actually have unsafe driving conditions on their existing driveway. So can you make the findings for design review? I've heard a lot of questions about trees. There's a detailed 25-page arborist report from Bartlett, which is the finest tree service and the tree company in the United States. And of the 72 trees that are in the area, out of literally hundreds, if not thousands on this property, only 25 are preserved and 47 are to be removed. Of the 47 that are going to be removed, 43 are in fair or poor condition. We're going to be having tree replacements. We're open to the idea if you want larger slices, certainly. If other things I heard about, well, is this going to be open in an emergency? Absolutely. If what we want to do is have a safer neighborhood. So if in an emergency, if people in the neighborhood had to use this driveway in order to go out through their property to get to Corte Madera Avenue and Camino Alto, and that was a safe egress, absolutely people can do that. This is an extra means of safety for the neighborhood. You heard maintain the chain, at least to the extent I understood that. What it means is the neighbor says, well, the neighborhood is saying we want to maintain this public right-of-way for ourselves. No, a right-of-way is a public ownership. And that's why a license is required in order to use it with permission that's revocable by the town. So in sum, I think you can make variance findings as well because they've been carefully crafted by staff. This is a very unique, oddly shaped property. It's super steep. It has 100-foot setback. And the majority, thank you, I got that's my beep. And so I'm going to stop in the next 10 seconds. And I think that the findings can be made, and I urge you to seriously consider supporting this for the emergency safety it provides everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Okay. So anyone else from the applicant side at all? No. Okay. So we've really got to the end of public comment. Do the commissioners have any further questions for staff at this point after hearing these comments and so forth? Jim. Okay, go ahead, Martha. Your microphone is probably off or.
Is Altaway or Alta Terrace, is that public or private?
RJ can chime in, but the portion past the proposed driveway is a private road that is maintained by, there's a handful of residents on Alta Terrace that privately maintain it. This driveway, they would make a right-hand turn off of the driveway onto the portion of Alta Terrace that is not privately maintained. That portion's maintained by the town. RJ, is that correct or?
Yes, I mean, based on the records we have and we've reviewed them many times over, that's our understanding.
May I address it as a property owner on Alta Way?
Not at this moment. I'll let you in a
Because
moment,
what
but
you heard was not correct.
please, go ahead. Martha, is that, and RJ?
And may I add, so the portion that is past the hairpin turn is still public right of way, but it is a publicly maintained roadway, if that makes sense. I'm happy to elaborate if needed.
Yeah, please.
So when a subdivision is planned out, they have various roads, and this is where the term, Ruben earlier referred to paper road. So it's a road on paper that one day potentially could be built out and be an actual paved roadway that serves many houses. Sometimes things change, right? The subdivision may initially roll out half or 2/3 of the planned properties and then may not see the value in extending them further. And then at some future date, some individual or other developer will then say, hey, you know what, now let's proceed with the rest of them in this public right of way. And at that time, the town may say, well, that's fine. However, it's public right of way, but you need to pay for the asphalt and the roadway, and you need to maintain it as such. And so that is essentially what has occurred here. It's still public right of way, but it's a privately maintained roadway surface.
Okay. Does that help at all?
So I can't take this. It's terrible.
No.
So if it's it's a privately maintained road and a public right of way, is that
So
maintenance of it?
The part that is privately maintained is the portion it's after the hairpin turn. So after where the driveway is.
Okay, we'll get into a dialogue with you in a minute, sir. I'm going to let staff and so forth direct that we don't get into an ongoing
understand.
discussion. All right, thank you. Please go ahead.
So my understanding, and RJ, correct me if I'm misspeaking, is the portion of Alta Terrace that's past the hairpin turn, that is when it's the right of way that's maintained by the property owners. And then the portion of Alta Terrace below the proposed driveway is maintained by the town.
So all of it is public right of way. The portion downstream toward, Sausalito is public maintained roadway. The portion upstream is privately maintained pavement.
Okay. All right, so Margaret, he's made the distinction of where the public care stops and starts and then where the owners have to take care of the street above that hairpin curve, right?
But anybody can drive there.
Yeah, well,
Any truck, any
on the public.
anything.
Yes, right. Okay. Thank you. All right, Jim, you had a question.
Yes, Ruben, something was brought up, the width of the road downstream in the area we're calling publicly maintained, is there any area where the width doesn't meet the criteria that you need to get up there with your truck?
I can probably honestly say about 45% of the roadways within town
Yeah.
are pre-existing non-conforming.
Yeah, correct.
So less than 20 feet. So the drive or the roadway going up Alta Terrace from Alta Way is substandard. Doesn't even meet the width of a driveway. And so what it is, we're going from a narrow choke point to a much wider driveway into the private proposed at 800 Corte Madera Avenue. So can we get a fire truck up there? Yes. Yeah, the short answer.
So, excuse me, sir. No, we're talking to Reuben Martin here. So please, Jim, does that answer your question or what
Do you have any idea how wide it is?
Maybe about 10 feet at best in certain areas. And there's certain areas that are a little wider that can reach up to 16 feet. But typically, if we were to design a roadway today, at a minimum, it would be 20 feet wide. And so that's what we're looking at for roadways. And so typically, an example would be Alta Way, since we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Big portions of it where you'll see the parking boxes, those are portions of the roadway that are 20 feet wide or wider. And if you do not have a parking box, then those are areas that are choke points.
Got it.
Where we've decided that it's basically a one-way roadway that is being utilized for two-way traffic.
And the way we get around that is having the areas where you can park the truck and.
Correct. So that way we've actually gone through the neighborhoods to see where we can pass. Ideally, in a perfect scenario, if we were to design a community from today, it would look completely different when you look at the roadway network. So there are some challenges that we have, and anytime that where we can have places that where we can improve the roadway widths, we try to approach it. Unfortunately, a lot of times, a lot of our properties are built right up to the right of way. And so now it becomes even more difficult to try to widen those roadways.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kenny, do you have any questions for staff at this moment?
Yeah, I guess maybe this is a question for Martin. There was a comment made that this could be used as an exit for other neighbor in the case of a fire coming up the hill, say on Sausalito, that this could be another way out through the owner's property, and yet the gate is locked. So I don't quite understand. I mean, that could be an advantage to everybody in the NRG if there were another way out other than Alta Way or Sausalito, but I don't see how that's going to apply if the gate's locked. That's one point I'd like to understand. For me, the main issue here is fire safety, life safety. And is there a way of better quantifying how this benefits the fire department in fire access to the property, response time, any other issues that would make a difference? Another question would be whether since they've said this is just for private access of the residents, whether it's possible to put a deed restriction in to that effect, since that's what they've said, relative to adding any additional units on the property, which would then increase the traffic out this exit. So we'd be saying now it's 8 to 10 trips a day, but all of a sudden maybe it's 20 or 25 trips a day. Also, I'm just not totally convinced this issue of how the town's going to monitor any of this traffic on Alta Way for doing construction. How do you know if a pickup truck driving on Alta Way is going to this site to work or going down to Sausalito, cutting through that way? So I'd like to hear more about how this is going to be. I've been told that'll be developed later, but that to me is not quite acceptable because I think it's a very difficult monitoring situation.
Okay, I will answer the fireside questions and I'll pass along that to the rest of staff. So when it comes to emergency secondary egress, they are adding a Knox switch because it's an electric gate at the bottom where we have a key override that we can open the gate and maintain it open in the event that we need to utilize that as a secondary egress point. Now, we would then talk to the property owners ahead of time and have that agreement that if we need to use your property, we're going to use your property for egress. Because at that point, it's a mass evacuation for our entire community. So what we want to do is try to get as many people out as we can in the most direct possible way possible, whether it's, utilizing, and I've said it at certain points because we utilize some of the strategies up on Christmas Tree Hill where we have some of the challenges. And that's why we do a lot of fuels work on the Lower Summit Fire Road to be able to utilize that fire road access out of there, utilized with an example like a pilot car, where you would have the fire department pickup truck in front of you guiding half the residents out the fire road. So that way, you know where you're going. Similar would happen if we identified we need to mass evacuate the entire Alto Bowl, Sausalito, Fairview area, and we realize that it's a choke point coming down Sausalito. Can we then utilize that secondary access through 800 Corte Madera Avenue? If that's an access point where I can get people out, I'm going to utilize it. And I'll tell that to the property owners ahead of time. So we have that. And I've got the key, which basically it's a mass override that keeps that gate open and won't close on you. And so that's the point where we have access to that property, both on the front side and the back side. When it comes to response times, we just recently did a standards of cover study for our organization that looked at our response times throughout our entire jurisdiction, try to compare it to other agencies within the county and try to see, are we doing the best that we can on what the county says plus nationally recognized standards. And we realized with that study, we've got a couple holes within our jurisdiction where we can improve response times. Some of those response times are at the very top of Corte Madera Avenue, where that is some of our longest response times to our entire jurisdiction. So through our strategies that we're utilizing internally on our facilities, on where they should be located, we're going to try to address that. But having that secondary ingress into Corte Madera Avenue definitely reduces our response time, but at least by 1.5 minutes. And for those of you that aren't aware that if we need to get to the top of Corte Madera Avenue, we're taking Sausalito and Alta Way anyway, because it's the most direct route. So that's the way the fire department's responding most of the time. If we need to get to the top of Corte Madera Avenue, because it's easier than going through a windy road, because it's the most direct route. With that, I think I've answered your 2 questions on the fire side, then I'll pass it along to the staff.
Would you like me to address the idea of the deed restriction and public use in the event of evacuation needs?
Please, yes, that was one of my questions, yes.
Okay. So firstly, it is theoretically possible to do a deed restriction limiting the use of that road to the residents of the home and emergency services. Assuming that the applicant agreed to it, the trouble with that, of course, would be enforcement. It's going to be difficult to know whether or not they're complying with that restriction. And if we can prove that they have violated it, we would have to consider in advance what remedy would we want. It might be impractical to ask them to rip out the driveway if they violate that condition. So we would have to think, well, what then? As to the public access, I would recommend that if the commission decides to approve this, that they insert a condition of approval that the property owner would allow the use of this access driveway in the event of an emergency need, in the case of fire or other evacuation needs.
Okay, I think so. I understand that response. It's complicated to get that in place from a legal standpoint, right? To impose that upon the property for that access, is it not?
Complicated, simply because there's many things that are outside our control that are hard to monitor.
Right.
In theory, we could do it, but I think it's more difficult than it appears, and it might not be as effective as one would want.
So the process is usually complaint driven for this, and that there have been certain instances where the constructor has been directed to provide a monitor on the street for that specific purpose to log the trucks and activity. And that has been done in some circumstances.
That could be done easily if it's a short-term commitment, say during construction, if you want to make sure that trucks use this route, not that route, and use this staging area, not that staging area. But if they're concerned about long-term use of this driveway by persons other than the residents of the home, that's an ongoing monitoring problem.
Right.
Again,
Chair Chase, can I jump in? I just want to clarify something that I've heard and want to make sure we're clear. So when we look at this condition and it's, 9 or 10 trips a day, that's in the completed phase after construction. That, as far as I'm concerned, would not be applicable in construction. Obviously we would start with our standard encroachment permit, which has specific times and actually lists specific streets with varying restrictions on times of when vehicles can and can not, or construction can or can't take place. Beyond our standard encroachment permit, we would have to come up with a basis to vary from that, as that sets precedence for the whole town.
Okay, I want to just point out to everybody in the room here that at 10 o'clock, we have to vote to continue the meeting. And that we can do that with a majority vote, which brings us to 10:30, at which time we have to have a 100% vote to continue past that point. Okay, so maybe we'll do that at 10 o'clock here. But that's upcoming. And the point of my saying this is that this may not get decided tonight, since we still have a lot of ground to cover and deliberation and so forth. So I see the girls going, what does that mean? But so it leaves us 45 minutes to air all this out. I'm not sure that we want to air it all out in 45 minutes, but we can see if the applicant is willing to continue to a date certain, if that's a possibility. So the staff would have to respond about calendar and so forth as well in that way, since I know there's upcoming items. So I'm just throwing that on the table since we're still in the middle of discussion here. Anything else from the other commissioners about the project? I've heard some rumblings that I want to address, and I would like the
I've got another question.
go on.
I was actually thinking maybe we do a continuation just so that the applicant can maybe get together with the community and maybe talk us over. Maybe
That might be, right.
That could be an opportunity for us not to vote on it tonight and have the applicants talk to the community members, because it sounds like they haven't had proper outreach, get the community behind them.
That is something we can take under consideration, right? If the applicant would be willing to do that.
May I add some?
I'd like to see a fire route map, kind of a map of how the fire department would come from where they're stationed to get to this road, what they have to pass through, and maybe how the Mill Valley Fire Department would use the roads to get there. I'd like to better understand the coming and the going during a fire emergency.
Okay, all right, that's something to request. I'm sorry, RJ, were you going to say something there? No, okay. I did have a sort of a related question for Ruben here about something up there. So I wanted a better reality check on fire. up there. So it was a few years ago that there was a fire up at the top of Camino Alto, and there were helicopter drops on that, as I recall, something like that. It was not a significant fire at the time.
No, if I recall, it may have been about 2.5 years ago or so. It was basically just past the property where the applicant lives. And it was on the east side of the grade, which is on the open space side. It was approximately about 2 acres. We had a water drop. We were able to access it off of the Camino Alto Fire Road. And we were able pretty much to contain it there with no evacuations, basically telling people to shelter in place. And we were able to handle it. I think we received about 8 resources, so 8 fire engines. So we had 3 from Central Marin. We had a resource from Kentfield, and we had 2 resources from Southern Marin coming in. So they would come in from Camino Alto, and we'd come in through Corte Madera Avenue to suppress the fire that was on that side of the hill.
What was the approximate duration of that event up there?
Hour and a half, 2 hours max, from beginning to the end of mop up.
So that's
So it was about a 2-hour drop where we closed off Camino Alto right at Miller or Blythedale, and then Corte Madera Avenue right at Montecito and First Avenue.
So that's kind of how it operates.
That's how it operates, because there's only, once you shut off those 2 arteries, then it allows just emergency personnel to function freely. And then we also shut it off right at the top of Corte Madera Avenue. So it pretty much isolated everyone within Chapman Park to exit either Sausalito or go down Eastman or Chapman.
Kind of a silly question here, but the fire started up there at the peak. Other fires start down at the bottom and travel up the canyon.
That's correct. Most of the time, fire travels uphill and in the direction of the wind. The times where you'll actually see fire travel downwind is when we see that, or downhill is when we have that wind over slope influence, where the wind's blowing so fast that it pushes fire actually downhill, which is the unnatural way it wants to travel.
Right. So has anybody ever studied what that might look like in terms of a duration coming up from the bottom of the canyon, going up through Chapman Park, up the hill?
Yeah, our fear would be maybe something on your typical conflagration, what we're talking about, your red flag days, which are your hot days, low humidities, high winds, typically coming out of the northeast. You would probably have something start maybe somewhere in the Coach Fire Road area, the Horse Hill area, and then burn eastward on your typical red flag days. Now, on your typical weather pattern days where you start getting that coastal influence, where around 2 or 3 o'clock, we typically see that strong wind push coming through the Corte Madera grade. If you had a fire start somewhere in Scotts Valley, down below, that would quickly start running up towards the Corte Madera city limits and town limits. And so our goal would be then to try to evacuate that zone that are close proximity to the incident and try to get them as furthest away as we possibly can.
Comes from that side, from the Corte Madera side.
So on the Corte Madera side, typically we would have to have our red flag days for it to push uphill towards into Chapman Park. What we typically would anticipate is a house fire or a vehicle fire somewhere right on the edge of the open space in the water district that would then get an opportunity to get established in the vegetation that would then be driven by wind, pushing from north to south.
All right. Yeah. So at the moment you have 3 points of attack. You either go up Meadow Suite and go around there, or
Correct.
you're on Corte Madera Avenue and you come up Sausalito.
Absolutely. And then we also have access through all of our fire road networks that takes us up all into the watershed and to the open space areas.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted a better understanding of what the fire mindset was up there.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. So, in theory, we're still in public comment time here. And I've heard a lot of the audience members want to jump in, but we can't do that. So somebody had some commentary about who owns what or what is the right responsibility. So who amongst you, sir?
I am David Zeff, and our entrance is on Alta Way, and the road up in front of our house is city right of way, but we have to maintain it. Let me make a point. Sausalito Street comes up and it doesn't connect to Alta Terrace. You turn right on Alta Way, then you turn left onto Alta Terrace. As far as I know, anything on Alta Terrace, and the people who live there can correct me, from Alta Terrace up to around the hairpin turn is all public right of way, privately maintained. So the people coming down the driveway that's proposed would be going over the private road, not any publicly maintained road, until they got to Alta Way. Now, Alta Way is publicly maintained from Sausalito to where is it? To 39? To 39, which is Kevin's property, right? And then it's privately maintained to Chapman Drive.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarity. Now, RJ, can you clarify any of that from your perspective, please?
That's inconsistent with not only my understanding, but what we've done in recent years. So I believe it was paved just before I started with the town in 2018. And that was right to the somewhere near the midpoint of the hairpin turn. I personally have had to work up there multiple times, and we've always considered the middle of the hairpin turn as our kind of limit of town maintained. We've done slurry projects. We've had to, as part of the sanitary district, had to do sewer work up there, and have had to restore the private roadway portion. So it isn't as clear. I'd love for it to be on a map with a very clear, black line that says this is where it is and this is where it isn't. But based on all the records research, that's where we have followed over the last, 7 or so years plus. And also was reflective in our kind of town maintained roadway maps even before I got there. And look, if the folks on Alta Terrace are interested in making that a public maintained roadway, I mean, I think there's an option there. We just need to make sure it's, up to a reasonable standard. So if, that's totally on the table if that's kind of a sticking point.
Okay, thank you. So here we are at 5 minutes to 10. We're going to do two things. We're going to vote to continue past 10 amongst the commissioners. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss the project amongst us. We're going to ask the applicant if there is a possibility of having a further outside meeting per Commissioner Rizzo's suggestion and other people's suggestions. We'll talk to you about that. And we'll talk to staff about getting a continuance for this and to what date that might be. So let's take a vote first on going past 10.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Aye. Commissioner Kenny?
No.
No. Okay. Well, this doesn't have to be unanimous. I'm going to vote to go till 10:30. So I'm sorry, sir. So anyway. Okay, so, but right now then, let's take a break. We'll reconvene at 10. So thank you. Okay, we're all back. We took longer. Hello, can we have some quiet, please? Thank you. All right, so we took a long break, but we're back. I don't think we'll go past 10:30. So we essentially have 20 minutes here to continue with what we were talking about. And we're at the point where the commission itself needs to deliberate this. I don't know that there's any more staff input for this at this point. We've heard quite a bit of commentary. I just noticed somebody turned the heat on, which is great. I've been freezing over here. Thank you. Yeah. So besides that, the idea of having a community get together of some kind that we can't attend, but it would be between the applicant and the neighbors. I think that I'm interested, and staff has suggested that we talk more about what has taken place between the community and the applicant. I think that there's clearly a significant amount of opposition to the project from the neighbors. So I don't know which of the representatives of the applicant might speak to the community outreach that has taken place. Would that be you, Leonard, or you, Sean, about that? Yes, describe the process about what has happened before, and it's referred to in the staff.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to let Lorelei, because she was actually at both of the meetings.
Okay.
I think she
All
would
right.
be far more effective because she is actually there.
Great.
I'm
Hi.
Lorelei, and I am the owner's representative. I work on a lot of the construction projects. Okay. I work with all the projects for the owners, and initially about a year and a half ago, trying to remember the exact dates, but our contractor, Red Horse Constructors, sent out a notice to the neighbors for us, and also put in the letter that we were open for a meeting. We had 2 responses, and I met Barry and I don't recall the other attendees offhand, but so that was about a year and a half ago. And then we also had a second meeting.
Thank you. Sir, let her speak, please, please. She's speaking. This is not a free-for-all, okay? Thank you. All right.
And at the end of last year, I believe that Martha stepped in and she started doing some outreach and
Please.
emails. And so we decided to do a second meeting with the neighbors at the bottom of the driveway. So we sent out the invite, and probably about 15 individuals showed up, and we all they spoke about their concerns, and I had Martha Rubin, our Sherwood with us, and then Lake Associates, our consultant, that was speaking with each of them and talking to each of them about their concerns.
Okay.
So two in-person meetings with myself, the neighbors, and our consultants.
Okay. And there are some comments, I don't recall where I see them, that were in support of the project, but most are against the project up there from the neighbors, right?
Yes.
So I think that quantifies it. I think that if you were to have a meeting, it would have to be either up there again or down here. You've heard a lot of the commentary from the neighbors and their specific concerns. Some are applicable, but everybody has those concerns. And you've heard them, you've categorized them, taken them in, and I think that they need a response on many of those things in some way. So I would encourage you guys to make clear responses to those elements that they voiced, and get them on the track that you want them to know about the project. What are the realities of it? What's real to it? Let's, dampen the perceptions with some reality and so forth that you may have about the project. So I think it's important to let them know more about what you're doing and let them hear from you what's going on with the project more succinctly.
Sounds good. I know that after the first 2 meetings, we did bullet point out and address those concerns. I did hear a few new ones tonight, so we're definitely open to continue those conversations. And I do know that some of the concerns that were brought forth from the neighbors. There's definitely things I think that we can work out that we're open to, speaking about the drainage. We are aware that there were, certain things with the drainage, and we had worked with Sherwood on, if this gets approved and once the design is through, when we start doing the construction set, that's definitely implemented into those drawings. But yeah, I think that we do have a lot of additional improvements, but you don't see it on the planning permit set. It's more in the construction phase.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you want a specific response, I mean, will we have minutes from staff? Or, I mean, I've been taking notes, but we've had a lot of comments. And so I just want to be able to follow the chair's request so that we can do this effectively. How do you want us logistically
Well,
to accomplish
there are
this?
minutes that are produced, but the video record stands usually as the record of the meeting on YouTube, right? You can call that up.
All right, so certainly I can review the video and we can prepare written responses to each and every comment if that's what you're seeking. What there's the issue with the comments is, of course, some relate to the project. Some are people's opinions that maybe aren't on the point of findings and that sort of thing. And so is the chair asking us to respond comprehensively to each and every comment that was made at the public hearing? I'm just trying to get
Yeah,
a sense
I understand
what you
the
want.
question because there's a lot there, but I think you owe it to the neighbors to provide as much response as you can. And sometimes the response is more in the vein of succinct declaration about the project and more description. So for instance, when they're talking about drainage and so forth, several people commented on it. But if your response says, here's what we're doing about drainage, this is how it's being handled, then that answers a lot of comments that were brought forth.
I suppose, except that this is a planning hearing and we're talking
I
design
understand that.
review. And at the building permit stage, you're going to have engineers speaking to public works to decide whether or not appropriate drainage or a building permit won't be issued.
And I
So-
understand that, but we're listening to these objections, and it would do the project and everybody on the board and in the town a lot of favor by getting these addressed and out front. To say that it's going to be answered down the road doesn't help anybody, frankly. So
Except that, I mean, in due respect to the chair, I mean, I've been to literally hundreds of planning commission meetings and this issue comes up often, the distinction between what's planning review and what's construction design review. And we're at the planning stage. And so whether or not the soils are adequate, there's going to be a geotechnical engineer who's going to decide whether it's
correct,
proper.
agreed. Yeah, that was my request of somebody, but there are other comments, and I think it has to do with the visibility of the retaining walls from Chapman or from Sausalito and so forth. That's certainly a comment that's been brought up. I don't know if you had flags up there on the hillside to show where the retaining walls are, people might say, oh, it's not visible, or it is visible. It's a supposition that it's visible and that it's a visual impact. That's something that we're supposed to consider. And
True.
it's hard to know when you're driving up and down the road. I think if you put something up and then had people look at it and say, oh, it's not really, or it is an impact, I'd be willing to go back out and look at it. And I think the other commissioners would too.
So are you asking for flagging and a photo study so that you can stand at various points in the neighborhood of Sausalito or Alta Way or whatnot and have story poles with flags on it to ascertain where the
In that
retaining
vein,
walls are?
yes. In that vein, yes. I think it's important for everybody to understand what's the visual impact on the hillside. I think that the application should be amended to show larger tree sizes. That's something that's been commented on by a number of parties. And that the box sizes need to be up to 24 or something instead of 15-gallon
There's a great deal of difference between a 15-gallon and a 24-inch box. I mean, that's like an ant to an elephant. So there's a big range between those two sizes. And so we're happy, and I mentioned that in my comments, that we're happy to increase sizes, but there's a huge range of what can be done.
But I'm saying increase the sizes.
Okay.
Get something in writing on there. So you go from a 15-gallon, the next size is usually a 24 box, something like that. It's not, there's not a lot in between that stuff. And for those trees, they should be of size that have an impact sooner than later. Because a 15-gallon is going to take 3 or 4 years to get to the size of a 24-inch box.
Okay.
So, you know, that's just starting. It implies earnestness on the part of the applicant, I think.
Chair
Okay.
Chase,
Yes.
staff is happy to work with the applicant on making sure that responses are formed to the right questions that have come
Okay.
up tonight.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that there are a number of those elements in the comments that you guys have got a good list going that would help to define that for them. I think one of the biggest question marks has to do with traffic up there. So how is traffic going to be regulated? And that's a sort of a staff issue. How is it quantified for what's going to happen up there? Okay. We're considering that now. And it's important for the residents to hear that.
Can I have clarity on that issue of traffic? You just said, I mean, there's the traffic of the single family that lives there, and then there's the construction management of the entire project. Of course, everyone's house that's up there had construction impacts when they were built, and no surprise, when you have a project, you have some construction impacts. So are we talking about construction management, or are we talking about traffic from the single family that lives there that's already condition number 25 of approval that says only the family can use this driveway? I need clarity on that point.
So I think that even though it is a construction management plan that's required as a part of approval, I think that what we're hearing is that that needs to be out front of this, and I would feel that that should be provided to the neighborhood. Is what is the traffic impact on the neighborhood before we get it?
So you're looking for a traffic study from the traffic?
No, I'm not asking for a traffic study. I'm asking for somebody to say, okay, let's see what the construction traffic plan looks like. Is that?
Well, okay, but the construction, I mean, we can work on a construction management plan with staff, but again, with my experience, that's typically done at the building permit stage, not at the planning stage. But if you want a construction management plan now, anything is possible. I mean, we can do it. It's just early in the process and how that normally works.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get you to generate some goodwill toward the neighbors and so forth, and define what it is that's going to happen up there.
I understand, but unfortunately with the neighborhood, consensus is they would not like to see this project. They don't want to see a driveway on the hill. That is the bottom line of it. And so we can provide all the information we want. I sincerely doubt that we're going to be successful in changing the minds of anybody who spoke here tonight to say, oh, okay, now that I understand, I get bigger trees and we're going to paint the concrete walls green and we're going to convince you that only the family is going to use the new driveway. I wish I could be more optimistic, but I don't think that's going to change people's opinions. They just are opposed to the project, which they have a perfect right to do. It's America. Everyone can give their opinion about how they feel. And this neighborhood is generally opposed to this project. And so I'm happy to do more outreach, but I want to be effective. I want to provide information that's useful to people. And so we just need guidance to make sure that we provide the information that this commission wants us to do, and we will do it to the letter.
Okay. I think that you're right in that you're not going to sway the minds of those neighbors that far at all. But I think that being able to let the commission understand what is taking place there is a big help for us to decide either in favor or not for the project.
Fair enough. So we will, if we're doing a continuance, can we have a a vote to a date certain of when we can come back? Is that something we can do?
Yes, we can, but the staff has to decide what that might be, or they come back. We can take a vote to a date, but we don't know the date up here. You guys have to provide that possible date, right?
Yes, so our recommendation would be to renotice the project. And so we don't have to define a date tonight.
Okay. And what would that time frame look like?
At this point in time, it potentially could be May 27th.
May
At the
27, is that what I
earliest.
just heard?
Yes.
I'm just saying we are
So
going out
that's
2 months.
that's the third hearing from now.
Correct.
Yeah. And that, I know that you've got the 22nd blocked out, and then you need 2 weeks in terms of notice, or what's the reason for the 27th versus the?
We have other items lined up and scheduled, but also we would need time to analyze tonight's comments, be able to respond to those, and then prepare for the next hearing. So we can certainly schedule this and do a date time certain for May 27th, if you would like. And then if that does not work out, we can renotice. But that is the earliest date that at this moment we can foresee the potential.
May I ask to the chair, is that I assume the next 2 agendas are full? Is that the issue?
Correct.
Yeah,
That's
because
what you
we're
just-
of course trying to take advantage of the building season that's about to begin in 2 weeks. And so we're disappointed to delay any more than we have to.
I understand. We're not in a position to give you an approval or a denial tonight. So that is where this falls, is to us to take a vote to continue it. And that's the earliest that this can be heard. Yeah. So that's what we're going to do at this moment. We're down to 10:30. We're going to end the meeting at 10:30. Because we won't have a majority, I mean, an absolute vote to continue. So that's what we have to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your courtesy and attention tonight, and all the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that said, then we have a motion to continue to a date certain of May 27th.
Motion to continue to May 27th.
Okay,
A second.
Second.
okay. So we take a vote, please.
Great. Commissioner Bandel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bushoyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenny,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rizzo,
Yes.
and Chair Chase.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Good night.